I stood in the doorway, watching her pack. Her hands moved quickly, shoving dresses, shoes, and designer handbags into an open suitcase as if she were in a rush to leave before I had the chance to stop her. But I wasn't here to stop her. I wasn't here to beg, to plead, or even to argue. No, I was here for something much better, something she wouldn't see coming. I can't believe you sold our dream house to your 23-year-old boyfriend for $1, I said, keeping my voice steady. Vanessa barely glanced at me. A smirk flickered across her face before she zipped the suitcase shut. You'll never get it back, she said smoothly, straightening up. It's legally his now. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Her smugness was almost laughable. The way she said it, as if she had won, as if she had outsmarted me, made it all the more satisfying. Legally his, I repeated, pretending to let the words sink in. Right. Because you put it in his name, and now he owns it. She exhaled dramatically. Nathan, let's not drag this out. You're a lawyer. You know how this works. It's done. The deed is signed, the transfer is official, and there's nothing you can do about it. She tilted her head. Honestly, you should be happy for me. I get to move on, and you get to stop living in the past. Ah, there it was. The justification. The little speech cheaters love to give themselves so they can sleep at night. The idea that they're the victim, that they're the ones who were somehow trapped in an unhappy situation and had no choice but to burn it all to the ground. I see, I said. So that's how you see it? You're moving on? Vanessa flipped her hair over her shoulder, her confidence growing as she grabbed another bag from the closet. Of course. I was suffocating, Nathan. You were so caught up in your career, your cases, your clients. I needed more. Carter gives me that. Ah, Carter. The boy toy she threw our marriage away for. The same Carter who had probably never filed a tax return in his life, let alone understood how property law worked. But sure, he was a real man in her eyes. Well, I'm happy for you, I said, keeping my voice light. That made her hesitate. Her fingers curled around the handle of her suitcase, and she turned to look at me. You are? I nodded. Of course. If this is what you really want, if Carter makes you happy, then who am I to stop you? Her lips parted slightly, eyes narrowing as if she were trying to figure out what game I was playing. That's surprisingly mature of you. Yeah, well, I shrugged. We were together for a long time. I'd rather end things with some dignity. She smiled, as if she had won something, as if she had been expecting a bitter fight and was pleased that I was just rolling over. Of course, she had no idea. I let a slow smile creep onto my face. By the way, I added, you might want to read the fine print before you get too comfortable. Vanessa frowned. What fine print? I shrugged again, already stepping toward the door. Nothing. Just something I noticed when I was going through the paperwork. But if you're sure it's legally his now, then I'm sure it'll be fine. I could feel her eyes burning into my back as I walked away. I could practically hear the gears in her head turning. Vanessa wasn't dumb. She had a sharp mind, one of the things that had drawn me to her in the first place. But she was careless, reckless. She made decisions based on impulse, not long-term consequences. And that's exactly why she had no idea she had just signed her own financial death sentence. The moment I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. I already knew who it was before I even looked. Vanessa, what the hell did you do? I didn't respond. Let her sit with it for a while. Let her wonder. Let her sweat. Because in the next few days, she would learn a painful lesson, one she would never forget. 2 weeks earlier, I had been sitting at my desk at the law firm, finishing up a contract review when Claire, a colleague, knocked on my office door. The way she hesitated in the doorway set off alarm bells. Claire wasn't the type to beat around the bush. If she was hesitating, it meant whatever she had to say was bad. Nathan, she said, holding a thick manila folder against her chest, there's something I think you need to see. I gestured for her to come in, setting my pen down. That doesn't sound good. She walked over and placed the folder on my desk, pushing it toward me without a word. I flipped it open, frowning as I scanned the first page. It was a property transfer document, one with my house's address on it. My stomach twisted as I read further. Seller, Vanessa Reynolds. Buyer, Carter Jameson. Sale price, $1. I stared at it, feeling like the ground had just disappeared beneath me. This has to be a mistake, I muttered. Claire shook her head. I triple-checked. It's already been recorded with the county. 3 days ago. 3 days ago. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. 3 days ago, Vanessa had been in our house, laughing with me at the dinner table, acting like nothing was wrong. 3 days ago, I had still been living under the illusion that, despite her late nights, her sudden secrecy, and the way she had been withdrawing from me, she was still my wife. And all that time, she had already signed away our home. I clenched my jaw, forcing my breathing to stay even. Anger wouldn't help me. Panic wouldn't help me. I had been blind, but I wasn't going to be stupid. I closed the folder and looked up at Claire. Does she know you found this? She hesitated before shaking her head. No, but it won't take her long to figure out someone tipped you off. Good. I had time. Not much, but enough. I had always been careful about separating work from my personal life, which meant I had never handled the legal aspects of our house myself. Vanessa had insisted that I was too busy, that she'd take care of the details while I focused on my career. And I, like a complete idiot, had trusted her. Now, that trust had turned into a loaded gun in her hands, one she had fired without a second thought. But she had no idea that, in her rush to get rid of me, she had left a crucial detail unchecked. I turned back to Claire, my voice calm. I need every document related to the house's construction. Everything we signed, every contract, every restriction. Can you pull them for me? Claire's eyebrows shot up. You think there's something she missed? I know there is. The search begins. By the time I got home that night, my mind was already racing through every possible angle. There had to be something, some loophole, some clause she hadn't read. Because that was the thing about Vanessa. She was smart, but she was also lazy when it came to the details. She liked to cut corners, to trust that everything would work out in her favor without reading the fine print. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, grabbed the folder Claire had compiled for me, and settled in at my desk. The documents were thick, but I had spent years breaking down complex contracts for a living. I knew exactly what to look for. An hour in, I found it. A buried clause in the deed restrictions, one that applied specifically to custom-built properties in high-value neighborhoods like ours. I read the paragraph 3 times, the words sinking in deeper each time. If a property is transferred for less than market value within 5 years of construction, the county tax assessor's office will initiate an automatic reassessment of the property's value. The seller will be required to pay the difference in full upon reassessment. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around the page. Bingo. Vanessa had sold a $2.8 million home for $1. The reassessment would hit immediately, and the tax bill? $980,000. And the best part? The clause didn't just apply to sales, it also applied to transfers, which meant that even though Vanessa had signed the house over to Carter, the tax burden would still fall on her. She had no way out. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. She thought she had one. She thought I was going to walk away with nothing. But instead, she had just handed me the perfect weapon. The next step. I barely slept that night. My mind was too sharp, too wired, too focused. The pieces were all lining up, falling into place like dominoes. By morning, I was at my office before anyone else, preparing my next move. I needed to move fast, but smart. Step 1. Don't let Vanessa know I found the clause. If she figured it out before the tax assessment hit, she'd try to weasel her way out. Maybe she'd go crying to the county, claim ignorance, beg for an exemption. I couldn't risk that. Step 2. Freeze any financial transfers. If she was willing to steal our home out from under me, who knew what else she was hiding? I needed to find out where the rest of our assets were before she tried to drain everything. Step 3. Let her feel safe. Let her believe she had one. Let her bask in the illusion that I was powerless, that she had outsmarted me, that she had secured a life with her little boy toy without consequences. And then, let the reality hit her like a freight train. I sat back in my chair, sipping my coffee as the sun rose outside my office window. The first move had been hers, the betrayal, the lies, the deception. But the last move? The last move was mine. I've always believed that people dig their own graves. Some use lies, others use greed. Vanessa? She used carelessness. For weeks, she had been planning this, moving behind my back, making her little arrangements with Carter, forging a future she thought was untouchable. She truly believed she had outplayed me, that she had found a way to erase me from the picture while keeping everything we built together. But she missed one thing, and that one thing was about to cost her everything. As I flipped through the deed restrictions again, I couldn't help but smile. This clause, this beautiful, perfect, ironclad clause, wasn't something I had slipped into the contract. No, it had always been there, buried in the standard custom-built property agreements for high-value neighborhoods. The clause was designed to prevent fraudulent transfers, to stop people from dodging property taxes by selling million-dollar homes for next to nothing. The county wasn't stupid. They knew people tried to game the system. So, they implemented a mandatory reassessment rule for any property sold below market value within the first 5 years of construction. Meaning, the county would automatically reassess the house at full market price. The seller, not the buyer, would be on the hook for the tax liability. There was no way to reverse it. No loopholes, no appeals. And Vanessa had just handed our $2.8 million home over to Carter for a single dollar. The tax bill? $980,000. Due immediately. And the best part? The deed restrictions transferred with the property, which meant Carter was stuck too. He couldn't sell it, transfer it, or do anything to avoid the tax bomb that was about to detonate in Vanessa's lap. She had played herself. Now, I had to be smart. If I made my move too soon, she'd find a way to wiggle out of it. If I waited too long, she might figure it out on her own and try to reverse the damage. I needed to time it perfectly, like a bomb going off exactly when she thought she was in the clear. So, I did nothing. I went to work like usual. Answered emails, took calls, pretended like I hadn't just uncovered the perfect way to destroy her. And the best part? She had no idea. She still walked around like she had won. Like she had wiped me off the board and could start fresh with Carter in our home. The home I built, the home I paid for, the home I had trusted her with. So, I let her believe it. Because in a matter of days, she was going to wake up to a financial nightmare that no amount of charm, manipulation, or begging would fix. The first sign that Vanessa realized something was wrong was her texts. I was sitting in my office, sipping my coffee, when my phone buzzed. Vanessa, what the hell did you do? I smirked but didn't respond. A few minutes later, another one. Vanessa, Nathan, call me. Now. Still nothing from me. Then a third. Vanessa, I swear to God if you don't answer. I laughed. Oh, now she wanted to talk. I had a feeling I knew exactly what had happened. The county assessor's office must have reached out to inform her about the pending tax reassessment. The moment she heard that number, $980,000, her entire world must have started crumbling. Good. She had spent weeks planning how to screw me over, but she had never considered the consequences of her own actions. Now, she was drowning, and I had no intention of throwing her a lifeline. By the time I got home that evening, Vanessa was waiting for me. She was standing outside the apartment building, arms crossed, tapping her foot like a spoiled child who had just been told no for the first time in her life. The moment she saw me, she stormed up. What did you do? I raised an eyebrow. You'll have to be more specific. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Her voice was shaking, not with anger, but with fear. The county says I owe nearly $1 million in taxes. I blinked, feigning innocence. Wow, that's rough. Her eyes narrowed. You planned this. I tilted my head. Planned what? You're the one who transferred our house for $1, Vanessa. That was all you. I had nothing to do with it. But the clause. She stopped herself, realization hitting her. She finally got it. You didn't read it, did you? I asked, stepping closer. You never read the deed restrictions. You never checked to see if there were any conditions before you handed over a multimillion-dollar home for a single dollar. Her mouth opened, then closed. I could see it in her eyes, the moment of absolute, crushing regret. You can fix it, she said quickly, desperation creeping into her voice. You're a lawyer, Nathan. You know how to undo this. I sighed, shaking my head. I can't. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, there's nothing I can do. The clause is legally binding. The tax bill is already being processed. Vanessa actually staggered backward, like the weight of reality had physically hit her. Then I'll contest it, she whispered. I'll say I didn't know. I chuckled. Good luck with that. You're an adult, Vanessa. You signed the deed. And last I checked, ignorance isn't a valid legal defense. But by all means, tell a judge that you transferred a $2.8 million property for $1 without reading the documents first. I'm sure that'll go over well. Her face turned pale. She knew she was trapped. What am I supposed to do? She muttered. I don't have that kind of money. Not my problem, I said, brushing past her. Oh, and I wouldn't count on Carter helping you either. He owns the house now, which means if you don't pay that tax bill, he loses the property. Something tells me your little boy toy doesn't have $1 million lying around. I didn't even have to turn around to know her expression had crumbled. I walked inside, closing the door behind me. She thought she had one. She thought she had taken everything from me. But all she had really done was destroy herself. Vanessa always loved control. She thrived on the illusion that she was the smartest person in the room, that she could manipulate any situation in her favor. She had spent weeks, maybe months, crafting her little scheme, moving money, transferring property, making sure she had her fresh start lined up before she dropped the hammer on me. She thought she had everything figured out. And now? She was watching her empire collapse in real time. After our brief conversation outside my apartment, I didn't hear from Vanessa for almost a day. No texts, no calls, nothing. Which told me one thing. She was scrambling. She was Googling tax laws, calling every contact she had, probably even sitting across from Carter trying to figure out how they were going to pay that tax bill. And she was coming up empty, because there was no way out. I had spent years perfecting contracts, closing real estate loopholes, and navigating property law. And she thought she could blindside me with a fraudulent sale? Please. The best part? She had played herself so perfectly that I didn't have to do anything. I could just sit back and let her panic. On the second day, my phone buzzed. Not Vanessa this time. It was her mother. I sighed and answered. Hi, Margaret. Nathan, she started, and I could already hear the forced politeness in her voice. I just had the most troubling conversation with Vanessa. She says you're refusing to help her with the house situation? I almost laughed. The house situation. As if it were a mild inconvenience, not a financial disaster. Margaret, I said, keeping my voice level, Vanessa didn't ask for my help. She sold our house for $1. She made this mess herself? There was a pause. Then, a carefully worded response. You're a lawyer, Nathan. You know mistakes happen. Maybe you could assist her in fixing this? Ah, there it was. The attempt to guilt me into solving Vanessa's problem. No, I can't, I said, enjoying the honesty. And even if I could, I wouldn't. Vanessa knew exactly what she was doing. Margaret inhaled sharply. But, sorry, Margaret, I interrupted. I have a meeting. Gotta go. And I hung up. That night, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I had a pretty good guess who it was before I even picked up. Hello? Nathan, man. A nervous voice greeted me. Carter. Listen, we need to talk. I smirked. I knew this was coming. About what? The house. He exhaled sharply. Vanessa didn't tell me about the tax thing. This is bad, man. Like, really bad. Oh, I said, enjoying the way he stumbled over his words. Yeah, and look, I don't want problems, okay? He hesitated. I just need to know if there's a way out of this. Maybe I can sign it back to you? I almost felt bad for him. Almost. You'd have to ask Vanessa, I said. She's the one who made the deal. Legally, it's your house now. Yeah, but, he swallowed hard. If I don't pay the taxes, they'll seize the property. Vanessa said you might help. I let that hang in the air. Vanessa told him I might help, which meant she was still clinging to the hope that I would cave. That at the last second, I'd step in and clean up her mess. That wasn't going to happen. You're in a tough spot, Carter, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But there's nothing I can do. But good luck, I added, and then I hung up. The next day, she came to my office. I knew she would. Vanessa hated losing, hated feeling like she was backed into a corner. And now? She was desperate. I was reviewing a case when my assistant buzzed in. Your ex-wife is here to see you. I grinned. Send her in. Vanessa walked in like she still owned the room, still held the power. But I saw the tension in her shoulders, the way she was clutching her designer handbag like a lifeline. She closed the door behind her. We need to talk. I leaned back, folding my hands on the desk. Do we? She sighed, moving closer. Look, I know you're mad. Mad. I cut in. No, I'm actually enjoying this. Her jaw clenched. You don't have to do this. Do what? Act like some cold-hearted bastard just because we didn't work out? I laughed. Vanessa, this isn't about our marriage failing. This is about you trying to screw me over and getting burned in the process. She exhaled sharply. Fine. I made a mistake. I should have. Read the fine print? I finished for her. Yeah, you should have. She swallowed, frustration flickering in her eyes. She wasn't used to this, being the one begging. Nathan, please, she finally said. I need your help. I tilted my head. You needed my help when you were signing the house over to Carter. Not now. She exhaled sharply. There has to be something. There is, I interrupted. You pay the tax bill. Or Carter does. Either way, the county is getting their money. She shook her head. I don't have that kind of money. I smirked. That sounds like a you problem. Her lips parted, like she was about to argue, but for once in her life, she had nothing left to say, because she knew I was right. And that moment right there, that was better than any revenge I could have ever planned. She left without another word. I watched her walk out of my office, shoulders hunched, her entire world crashing around her. And me? I just sat there, sipping my coffee, knowing this was only the beginning. The real fallout was still coming, and I couldn't wait. Vanessa had always lived in a fantasy world, a world where consequences were for other people, where she could make reckless decisions, betray the people closest to her, and still land on her feet every single time. But reality? Reality had finally caught up with her, and now she was drowning in it. It didn't take long. By the next morning, Vanessa had finally run out of options. At 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed with her name. I didn't pick up. At 9:15, another call. Then another. At 9:20, I checked my voicemail. Her voice came through shaky, frantic, almost unrecognizable. Nathan, please pick up. I need to talk to you. It's serious. She exhaled sharply. They called me. The county. I don't even know how this happened. She did, of course. But it was easier to pretend she didn't. Please call me back. I don't know what to do. She was cracking, and I wasn't going to stop it. By noon, Vanessa had given up on the phone calls and switched to texts. Nathan, answer me. I need to talk to you. This is serious, Nathan. Stop being childish. I can't pay this. I don't have that kind of money. Please. There it was. The please. The realization that I wasn't coming to save her. That she had built this entire house of cards on lies and deceit, and now it was collapsing in slow motion around her. At 2:30 p.m., I got a different call. This one was from the county tax assessor's office. Mr. Reynolds, this is Stephanie Wells from the property tax division. I wanted to confirm that the reassessment for your former residence has been completed. I leaned back in my chair. That's great to hear, Stephanie. What's the final number? $980,000 in back taxes, she said. Due immediately. We've already sent the formal notice to Mrs. Reynolds. I smiled. Perfect. Vanessa had probably just opened that letter, her heart stopping in her chest as she saw the amount. No loopholes. No extensions. No way out. And now? Now, she was desperate. By evening, I got another call. This one wasn't from Vanessa. It was from Carter. I had been waiting for this. The moment when reality would finally hit both of them like a sledgehammer. I picked up, keeping my tone casual. Hello? Nathan, man. Carter's voice was rushed, anxious, and slightly higher pitched than usual. Listen, I need to talk to you. This is serious. Oh, I said, pretending to be surprised. What's going on? The house, he blurted out. The taxes. I just found out about them. I smirked. You just found out? That's odd. Vanessa didn't mention it? A pause. A long, awkward pause. I mean, she didn't know either. Liar. I leaned back in my chair. Well, Carter, I'm not sure what you want me to do about it. You own the house now. Legally, it's your responsibility. Dude, I can't afford this. His voice cracked. I don't have that kind of money. I let the silence drag. Let him sit in it. Then, I finally spoke. Sounds like a problem, Carter. You have to help me, man. I don't know what to do. Actually, I said, I don't have to do anything. But if I were you, I'd sell the house before the county takes it from you. Carter didn't answer right away. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the slow, creeping realization that he was about to lose everything. But Vanessa said, I laughed. Vanessa said what? That she'd fix it? That she'd find a way out? I heard him swallow. Let me guess, I said. She told you she had it all under control. That she could handle it. He didn't respond. I sighed. Carter, you were just a pawn. She used you to try and hurt me. And now? Now, she's realizing that she screwed herself over, too. He exhaled sharply. I should have never. Yeah, I said. You shouldn't have. I hung up. The next morning, Vanessa showed up at my office. She didn't walk in confidently this time. She didn't strut. She stormed in, red-faced, breathing hard, eyes burning with desperation. She slammed the door behind her. You need to fix this. I took a sip of my coffee. Good morning to you too, Vanessa. She didn't sit. She didn't move. She just stood there, shaking. The county is saying I owe almost $1 million, Nathan. I set my cup down. I heard. She gasped. You knew? I raised an eyebrow. Of course I knew. I read the deed restrictions. Unlike you. Her hands curled into fists. You did this on purpose. I laughed. You did this, Vanessa. You sold a $2.8 million house for $1 without checking the paperwork. That's not on me. Her nostrils flared. I don't have that kind of money. That sounds like a you problem, I said, echoing my words from before. She inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring. Nathan, please, she whispered. I can't lose everything. I leaned back in my chair. Vanessa, I want you to think back to the moment you signed that transfer. The moment you sold our house to your boy toy for $1. What were you thinking? She swallowed hard but said nothing. Were you thinking about me? I asked. Were you thinking about what would happen to me? Or were you just focused on screwing me over? She looked down. That was all the answer I needed. You made your choice, I said. Now, you get to live with it. Her lower lip quivered, but she held it together. Finally, she took a shaky step back. I hate you. I smiled. No, Vanessa. You hate yourself. She stormed out. I watched her go, feeling nothing but satisfaction. She thought she had won. She thought she had destroyed me. But now, she was the one losing everything. And I hadn't even started yet. Vanessa had always been good at pretending. Pretending she was untouchable. Pretending she was smarter than everyone else. Pretending she could never lose. But today, she was falling apart. I could see it in the way she moved, the way her carefully constructed world was collapsing beneath her feet. And the best part? She had built the entire thing herself. After Vanessa's outburst in my office, I thought she might finally disappear for a while, crawl under a rock, lick her wounds, try to come up with some pathetic plan to fix the unfixable. But no, because Vanessa didn't know how to give up. And by the next morning, she was back. Not at my office this time. At my apartment. I had just finished my coffee when I heard pounding on my door. Reluctantly, I walked over and pulled it open, finding her standing there in yesterday's clothes, her hair disheveled, her mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She looked rough. Vanessa, I said, leaning against the doorframe. To what do I owe the pleasure? She stormed inside, shoving past me like she still had some claim over my space. I sighed, closing the door. I see we're skipping pleasantries. She turned, her expression a mix of fury and panic. Carter's leaving. I blinked. Oh. She nodded, swallowing hard. He's selling the house. I had to fight a grin. Wow, that was fast. Vanessa exhaled sharply. He said he won't be tied to my mistakes, that he's not paying for my problems. I let out a low whistle. Cold, but smart. Her hands curled into fists. This isn't funny, Nathan. To me, it was. Because she had ruined our marriage for this guy. Had thrown away everything we built for some young idiot she thought would worship her. And now? Now, he was jumping ship the second things got difficult. How poetic. I took a sip of my coffee, watching Vanessa pace like a caged animal. So, I said, what's your plan? She spun around. My plan? Yeah, I shrugged. You need $1 million in taxes. You need a place to live. Carter's leaving. What's your move? Her mouth opened and closed, like she was struggling to form a response. And for the first time, I realized she didn't have one. She had spent so much time playing offense, scheming and manipulating, that she had never bothered to think about what would happen if she lost. She had no backup plan, no safety net, and the panic was finally setting in. She inhaled deeply, straightening her spine, as if forcing herself back into control. I need you to help me, Nathan. I almost choked on my coffee. I'm sorry. What? She swallowed, her throat visibly tight. We were married for a long time. You don't want to see me homeless, do you? I laughed. Actually laughed. Vanessa, I didn't throw you out on the street. You did that to yourself. Her jaw clenched. You're seriously just going to stand there and do nothing? Yep, I said, popping the pea. She let out a shaky breath, rubbing her temples like this was all some inconvenient headache she could just will away. Nathan, please, she finally whispered. I can't do this alone. I tilted my head, pretending to consider it. Then I smirked. That's funny, because you sure seemed fine doing everything alone when you were signing that house over to Carter. Her eyes flashed. That's not fair. Oh. I raised a brow. You didn't feel guilty screwing me over, but now that you're the one suffering, suddenly it's not fair? She looked down, her lip trembling slightly. I made a mistake. I clapped my hands together. Finally, she admits it. I wish I had this on record. Nathan. Her voice was soft, desperate. I don't have anywhere to go. And that, I said, moving toward the door, is not my problem. She flinched. Now, if you'll excuse me, I said, pulling the door open, I have a meeting. And you? You have a house to sell? She didn't move for a second. Then, finally, she stepped forward, brushing past me into the hallway. As I closed the door behind her, I heard a soft sniffle. Vanessa never cried. At least, not where people could see. But today, she was cracking. And I loved every second of it. By that evening, I got a text from Claire, my colleague who first found the house transfer. Claire, saw something interesting today. Your ex's boy toy was at the title office. Looks like he's finalizing the sale. I smirked. Carter didn't waste any time. And why would he? He was young, selfish, and not nearly as dumb as Vanessa thought he was. He had seen what was happening. He had realized the financial mess she dragged him into. And he did what any self-serving guy would do. He ran. Now, Vanessa wasn't just broke. She was alone. And for the first time in her life, no one was coming to save her. The next day, my phone buzzed. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? It was Vanessa. Her voice was small, hesitant, like she had been rehearsing what she was about to say. Nathan, she started. Look, I know things have been bad between us, and I know I messed up. I stayed silent. But maybe, she continued, we don't have to keep fighting. Maybe we can come to an arrangement. I leaned back in my chair. An arrangement? Yeah. She cleared her throat. I mean, maybe I could stay with you for a little while. I almost burst out laughing. She was asking to move back in. After all of this, she actually thought I'd let her back into my home? Into my life? I chuckled. Vanessa, let me get this straight. You cheated on me. You stole our house. You tried to ruin me financially. And now that it's all backfiring, you think I'm just going to let you move back in? She was silent. Wow, I said. You really are delusional. Nathan. I hung up. That was the last time I ever spoke to her. The house was sold. The tax bill was cleared, but Vanessa walked away with almost nothing. Carter disappeared. And Vanessa? She moved in with her sister in a tiny apartment across town. Not the glamorous life she imagined, I'm sure. But that's the thing about betrayal. It always comes back to haunt you. And Vanessa? She had finally run out of people to betray. Vanessa had always been the kind of person who thought she could walk away from any disaster she caused. She was selfish, but she was calculated. She knew how to twist situations to her advantage, how to manipulate people into cleaning up her messes, how to make herself the victim no matter how many people she stepped on. But this time, there was no one left to save her. She had burned every bridge, and now, she was standing in the wreckage alone. 2 weeks after Carter sold the house, I had my lawyer send Vanessa the final divorce settlement. It wasn't negotiable. After everything she pulled, the fraudulent sale, the hidden accounts, the betrayal, I made sure she walked away with as little as legally possible. Half of everything marital was mine by law, but Vanessa had drained most of our liquid assets trying to cover the tax mess she created. By the time I was done, she was left with pennies. A few investment accounts, a used car, and whatever scraps she could salvage from her burned-down life. And when she got the papers, she finally realized it. That she had lost. Completely. I was sitting at my office desk, reviewing contracts for a client, when my phone rang. I didn't have to check the name to know who it was. I sighed and picked up. What, Vanessa? She didn't even pretend to be angry this time. Her voice was flat, hollow, exhausted. I got the divorce papers. I leaned back in my chair. Good. There was a pause. Nathan, she finally said, is there any way we can, I don't know, work something out? I blinked. Work something out? Yeah. I mean, she took a deep breath. Do we have to do it this way? I almost laughed. Vanessa, I said, you sold our house to your boyfriend for $1. She swallowed. I know. You drained our accounts trying to fix it. I know. You tried to screw me over in every possible way. And now that it's all falling apart, you want to talk about working something out? There was another pause. Then, quietly, I don't have anything left, Nathan. I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in. Not because I felt sorry for her. Because she had finally admitted the truth. Vanessa had spent her entire life pretending she was above consequences. And now, she had nothing. Not because of me. Because of her own decisions. That's not my problem, I said, and I hung up. It didn't take long before the news started making the rounds. Vanessa had spent years cultivating a reputation. The perfect wife, the charming socialite, the woman who always had things under control. But people talk. And in our social circle, people gossip. By the end of the month, Vanessa had become a cautionary tale. Not just about cheating. Not just about lying. But about flying too close to the sun and getting burned. What happened to Carter? Carter did what I always expected. He disappeared. No dramatic exit, no grand breakup. He just cut his losses and moved on. After selling the house, he packed up whatever money he had left and went back to his hometown, probably to find another rich older woman to leech off of. I heard he started dating someone new within a few weeks. Vanessa? She didn't even get a goodbye. She had thrown everything away for that kid. Her marriage, her house, her financial security, and in the end, she wasn't even worth a final conversation. I'd say I felt bad for her, but I didn't. The last I heard, Vanessa was living in her sister's apartment. She had no savings, no career, no place of her own. She had spent years building this image of herself as someone above everyone else, someone who would always land on her feet. But now, she was just another person who made stupid choices and paid the price. And nobody cared. Nobody rushed to save her. Nobody bought into her sob story. Because everyone knew the truth. She had done this to herself. A few months after the divorce was finalized, Vanessa sent me one last text. Vanessa, I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether or not I should even respond. In the end, I typed exactly 3 words. Me too, Vanessa. And then, I blocked her number. I don't think about Vanessa much anymore. My life has been better without her. I made partner at my firm. I bought a new place, one that actually felt like home. I started traveling again, seeing friends I lost touch with, rebuilding the life she tried to destroy. Vanessa thought she was the one moving on. She thought she was trading up. But the truth? She was never the one leaving me behind. I was leaving her behind. For good. It had been nearly 6 months since Vanessa signed away everything she had. 6 months since Carter sold the house, since Vanessa moved in with her sister, and since I had watched the wreckage of her life settle into place. In that time, I had rebuilt my life, piece by piece. I had made partner at my firm, bought a new home, and cut every remaining tie to Vanessa. She thought she was getting rid of me when she signed that house over to Carter. But in the end, she only set me free. I leaned back in my chair, gazing out the window of my new office. The city stretched before me, bustling, alive, full of possibilities. This was what life was supposed to feel like. Light, untethered, free of the weight of betrayal. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally in control of my own future again. Vanessa had always been a shadow, lingering over every decision I made, every move I took. But now, she was just a distant memory. And then, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. A text from my sister. Mia, saw Vanessa today. She looked terrible. I smirked. Of course, she did. It didn't take a genius to know why. She had spent her entire life using people, manipulating them, draining them. But once she had nothing left to take, once she was no longer useful to anyone, the world had moved on without her. And Vanessa? She didn't know how to exist in a world where she wasn't the center of attention. I had heard bits and pieces about what she was up to, little whispers from mutual friends. Apparently, she had tried to find another wealthy man, someone to swoop in and rescue her from her mess. But men like that? They didn't fall for women like her anymore. She had lost her charm, lost the illusion of power she had once wielded so effortlessly. Now, she was just another divorcee with baggage. And that wasn't something men with money wanted to deal with. So instead, she was stuck living paycheck to paycheck, working a boring job she hated, trapped in a life she never imagined for herself. I should have felt bad for her, but I didn't, because Vanessa had never once stopped to think about what she did to me, not until she was the one suffering. And by then, it was too late. That evening, as I sat in my apartment, enjoying the peace that came with not having Vanessa in my life, my phone buzzed again. Another text. From an unknown number. I stared at it for a moment before opening it. Unknown. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow. There was only one person who would be pathetic enough to send this now. Vanessa. She hadn't tried to contact me in months. Not since I shut down every one of her desperate attempts to talk her way out of the mess she created. Now, she was reaching out with a half-hearted apology? I scoffed, tossing my phone onto the table. It was too late for that. She wasn't sorry about what she had done. She was just sorry that she lost everything in the process. I let the message sit there for a long time before finally replying. Me, good to know. Now leave me alone. And then, I blocked the number. For good. A few weeks later, I was out with friends, enjoying a quiet dinner when I overheard something that made me pause. A woman at the table behind me was talking in hushed tones, her voice laced with amusement. Did you hear about Vanessa Reynolds? She asked. My ears perked up. Her friend laughed. Oh God, yes. She really thought she could bounce back, huh? Apparently, she tried to get back into the dating scene. But, like, nobody's interested. It's kinda sad. Not really, her friend said. I mean, she did it to herself, right? Karma's A**TCH. I smirked, taking a sip of my drink. I hadn't needed to destroy Vanessa's life. She had done that all on her own. And now, she was a punchline. A cautionary tale. Nothing more. People always think revenge is about getting even, about hurting the person who hurt you. But the truth? The real revenge is moving on. The real revenge is becoming happier than they ever imagined you could be. Vanessa expected me to crumble, to beg her to take me back, to fight for the house, for the money, for her. Instead, I let her destroy herself. And now, I was standing here, on the other side of it all, completely untouched by the disaster she created. She thought she had won when she signed that house over to Carter. She thought she had trapped me when she drained our accounts. But in the end, she was the only one who lost. Life without Vanessa was peaceful. I had new routines, new opportunities, new people in my life. I no longer had to worry about manipulation, deceit, or betrayal. I had control again. I had my freedom. And Vanessa? She was just a name from my past. A lesson learned. A mistake I would never repeat. I didn't need closure. I didn't need an apology. I had one. Because I had something she would never have again. A future. And that was worth more than any revenge. I couldn't shake the feeling that this trip was going to be something special, something that would pull us all together as a family. Me, Clarissa, and her whole crew, her dad Gregory, her mom Marilyn, and her little sister Nora, who could do no wrong in their eyes, were headed to Cape Haven, a gorgeous coastal town I'd only seen in pictures. The oceanfront resort we booked promised luxury, relaxation, and maybe a chance to finally feel like I belonged with them. I'd been married to Clarissa for 2 years, but her family always kept me at arm's length, like I was some guy they hadn't quite decided to trust yet. This trip, though, I figured it'd be different. I packed my bags with hope, imagining long dinners where we'd laugh, share stories, and maybe even bond a little. The drive down was smooth, Clarissa humming along to the radio while I pictured us all sitting by the water, the sun setting, me finally breaking through their walls. When we pulled up to the resort, the salty air hit me first, then the sound of waves crashing against the shore. It was perfect. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and chandeliers, and I felt a swell of pride knowing I'd chipped in big to make this happen. We checked in, dropped our bags, and headed to dinner. The waiter led us through the restaurant, all fancy white tablecloths and soft music, to a long table set for the group. I was grinning, ready to pull out a chair next to Clarissa, when Gregory's voice cut through the air like a dull knife. "He needs his own table," he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. I froze, my hand still on the chair. I looked at him, waiting for the punchline, because surely this was a joke, right? His face didn't crack a smile. Marilyn kept her eyes on her menu like I wasn't even there. Nora smirked a little, and Clarissa, my wife, the woman who's supposed to have my back, just stared at her hands. I laughed, a short, awkward sound, thinking maybe I'd misheard. "What?" I said, still standing there like an idiot. Gregory waved his hand toward a small table in the corner, 10 feet away, like it was no big deal. "Over there," he said, his tone flat, final. I looked around, waiting for someone to say something, anything, but the silence was heavy. The waiter shifted uncomfortably, holding a stack of menus, clearly unsure what to do. My chest tightened, and I felt my face heat up. Was this really happening? I'd driven 6 hours, paid for half this damn trip, and now I was being shoved aside like some unwanted guest. I thought about arguing, about planting myself right next to Clarissa anyway, but the way they all just sat there, Gregory with his smug chin up, Marilyn pretending I didn't exist, Nora sipping her water like this was normal, made me feel small. I swallowed hard, grabbed my jacket off the chair, and walked over to the little table in the corner. The waiter followed, mumbling an apology as he set a menu down in front of me. I sat there, staring at the words on the page, not reading a damn thing, while their voices drifted over, laughter, clinking glasses, the sound of a family I wasn't part of. I kept glancing at Clarissa, waiting for her to look my way, to wave me over, to fix this. She didn't. She just picked at her salad, nodding along to whatever her dad was saying. My stomach twisted, but I ordered anyway a steak, rare, because at least I could enjoy something tonight. The food came fast, and I cut into it, chewing slowly, tasting nothing but bitterness. They were over there toasting, probably to some family memory I'd never be part of, while I sat alone, the ocean view mocking me through the window. I kept telling myself it was a misunderstanding, that tomorrow would be better, that this was just a weird first night thing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. This wasn't a welcome. This was a message. And I was starting to hear it loud and clear. By the time the check came, I didn't even bother looking up. I paid my share alone, of course, and walked back to the room without a word. Clarissa didn't say anything when she climbed into bed later, just turned off the light like nothing had happened. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell we got here. This was supposed to bring us closer, but all I felt was the distance growing, a gap I wasn't sure I could cross. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'd figure it out. Tomorrow, I'd make it right. But even as I drifted off, that little table in the corner stuck in my mind, a sharp reminder that maybe I didn't belong here at all. I woke up the next morning with a knot in my gut, replaying last night over and over like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. Gregory's voice, he needs his own table, kept echoing in my head, and the way Clarissa just sat there, doing nothing, stung worse than I wanted to admit. I rolled over in bed, the sheets cool against my skin, and looked at her. She was still asleep, her dark hair fanned out on the pillow, looking peaceful, like none of it mattered to her. I wanted to shake her awake, demand answers, ask why she let her family treat me like that. But I didn't. Instead, I got up, splashed water on my face, and told myself today would be different. I'd make it different. I pulled on a shirt and jeans, grabbed my phone, and headed down to the lobby, figuring I'd catch them at breakfast and start fresh. The resort was alive with morning light, the smell of coffee and salt water mixing in the air. I texted Clarissa as I walked. Hey, where you at? Breakfast? No reply. I shrugged it off. She's slow to wake up sometimes, and kept going, my sneakers quiet on the polished floors. When I got to the hotel cafe, I spotted them right away. There they were, all four of them, sitting at a round table by the window, sunlight pouring in, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Gregory was tearing into a stack of pancakes, Marilyn sipping her coffee, Nora scrolling her phone between bites of toast. Clarissa was there too, smiling at something her mom said, her plate half empty. My chest tightened. They were halfway through their meal, and not a single spot was set for me. No extra chair, no napkin, nothing. I stood there for a second, just watching, feeling like I'd walked into someone else's life. I cleared my throat and stepped closer. Morning, I said, forcing a grin, hoping they'd wave me over. Gregory glanced up, his fork paused midair, and gave me a look like I'd interrupted something important. Oh, he said, we figured you'd find us. That was it. No apology, no grab a seat, just that flat, careless tone. Marilyn kept her eyes on her mug, stirring it even though there was nothing left to stir. Nora didn't even look up. And Clarissa? She flicked her gaze to me for half a second, then dropped it back to her plate, poking at some scrambled eggs. I stood there, hands in my pockets, waiting for anything to make this feel normal. Nothing came. Right, I said, nodding like it made sense, even though it didn't. I pulled out a chair anyway, the scrape of it loud against the floor, and sat down. The waiter hurried over, looking confused, and asked if I wanted a menu. Yeah, sure, I muttered, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. They went right back to talking, some story about a cousin I'd never met, while I sat there, the odd man out, staring at a menu I didn't even want. I ordered coffee and a bagel, just to have something to do with my hands. The whole time, I kept sneaking looks at Clarissa, waiting for her to say something, to include me, to act like my wife. She didn't. She just nodded along to her dad's booming voice, laughing when Nora chimed in with a sarcastic little jab. I sipped my coffee when it came, the bitterness matching the taste in my mouth. So, I tried, leaning forward. What's the plan today? Gregory didn't even pause, just kept chewing. Marilyn gave a vague, oh, we'll see, and turned back to her daughter. Clarissa shrugged, actually shrugged, and said, we'll figure it out. That was it. No invite, no details, just a brush off. I leaned back, my jaw tight, and stared out the window at the ocean rolling in. It hit me then, sitting there with my cold bagel and their empty plates, that this wasn't a one-time thing. This was how it was going to be. I looked at Clarissa again, her face soft and familiar, and waited for her to meet my eyes. She didn't. When they finished, they all stood up, stretching and chatting about heading to the beach or maybe a boat ride. No one asked if I was coming. I stayed in my seat, watching them file out, their voices fading down the hall. My phone buzzed, finally, a text from her. Meet us later if you want, it said. If I want. Like it was my choice to be left out. I set the phone down, finished my coffee in one long gulp, and stared at the empty table they'd left behind. That's when she caught up to me in the hall, her flip-flops slapping the floor. Hey, she said, casual as anything, don't take it personal, okay? It's just their way. Their way. Like that was supposed to make it fine. Like I should just smile and nod while they treated me like I didn't matter. I looked at her, searching her face for something guilt, maybe, or an apology, but all I got was that lazy shrug again. Sure, I said, my voice low. No big deal. But it was. It was a huge deal, and I could feel it sinking into me, heavy and cold. I walked back to the room alone, the sound of the waves outside doing nothing to calm the storm kicking up inside me. This wasn't just their way. This was a line in the sand, and I was on the wrong side of it. I woke up the next morning determined to shake off the mess from yesterday. The sun was barely up, painting the room in soft gold through the curtains, and I told myself today was a clean slate. I'd get up early, catch them before they could leave me behind again, and make this trip work. Clarissa was still out cold next to me, her breathing slow and steady, so I slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on a t-shirt and shorts, and grabbed my phone. I shot her a quick text, heading to the cafe, meet me for breakfast, and headed down. The resort was quiet this early, just a few staff wiping down tables and the faint hum of a vacuum somewhere. I liked it like this, calm and empty, no one to dodge or explain myself to. I got to the cafe and picked a table near the window, the same spot they'd been at yesterday, figuring they'd show up soon. I ordered a coffee and sat there, watching the waves roll in, sipping slowly while I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. My phone stayed silent. No buzz, no text back from Clarissa. I checked it anyway, just in case I'd missed something. Nothing. The coffee went cold in my hands, and I started to feel that same twist in my stomach from last night. But I pushed it down. They'd come, I told myself. They had to. Finally, I heard voices, Gregory's loud bark of a laugh, Marilyn's softer tone trailing behind. I looked up, and there they were, walking into the cafe like they owned the place. Clarissa was with them, her hair tied back, sunglasses perched on her head, smiling at something Nora said. They didn't even glance my way, just headed straight to a table across the room. My heart sank as I watched them sit down, the waiter rushing over with menus. For menus. For chairs. No empty spot, no wave to call me over, nothing. I sat there, frozen, my mug halfway to my mouth, watching them settle in like I wasn't even there. Gregory said something, and they all laughed, Clarissa too, her head tipping back like she didn't have a care in the world. I set the mug down harder than I meant to, the clink loud enough to make a guy at the next table glance over. Hey, I called out, standing up, my voice cutting through the chatter. They turned, all four of them, like they'd just noticed me for the first time. Gregory raised an eyebrow, his fork already digging into a plate of bacon that must have come fast. Oh, you're up, he said, like it was some big surprise. We figured you'd find us. There it was again, that same line, like it excused everything. Marilyn gave me a tight little smile, then went back to buttering her toast. Nora scrolled her phone, ignoring me completely. Clarissa met my eyes for a second, then looked away, picking up her coffee like it was more interesting than me. I grabbed my chair and dragged it over, the legs scraping the floor, and plopped it down at the end of their table. Mind if I join? I said, keeping my tone light, even though my hands were clenched under the table. No one answered, but Gregory shrugged, so I took it as a yes. The waiter hustled over, looking flustered, and handed me a menu. I didn't even open it, just told him to bring me whatever they were having. I sat there, trying to catch up, listening to them talk about some boat trip they'd done years ago, before I was around. I nodded along, waiting for a gap to jump in, but every time I opened my mouth, someone else filled the space. Gregory with a loud opinion, Marilyn with a quiet aside, Nora with a giggle. Clarissa didn't say much, just sipped her coffee and picked at her eggs, her eyes anywhere but on me. My food came, bacon, eggs, toast, and I ate it mechanically, chewing through the silence they built around me. It was like I was invisible, a ghost at their table, and the more I sat there, the louder it got in my head. I tried again, leaning forward. So what's on for today? I asked, forcing a smile. Gregory didn't even look up, just mumbled, we'll see, between bites. Marilyn nodded vaguely, and Nora didn't react at all. Clarissa gave me that same quick glance, then nothing. I pushed my plate away, half-eaten, and leaned back, my jaw tight. They finished up, chatting about heading to the pool or maybe the beach, tossing ideas around like I wasn't sitting right there. When they stood up, stretching and grabbing their stuff, I stayed put, watching them. You coming? Clarissa said finally, her voice flat, like it didn't matter either way. Yeah, I said, standing, but they were already moving, walking off without waiting. I followed a few steps behind, my hands stuffed in my pockets, the distance between us growing with every step. Back in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, her text still unanswered on the screen. That's when it hit me. I could have screamed in that cafe, yelled until my throat gave out, and they wouldn't have cared. They'd have kept eating, kept laughing, kept pretending I wasn't there. I tossed the phone onto the nightstand and ran a hand through my hair, my chest heavy. This wasn't just them being rude. This was them telling me I didn't belong, and Clarissa wasn't doing a damn thing to stop it. I decided right then. I was done trying. If they wanted me out, fine. I'd figure out how to deal with it my own way. I woke up the next day with a weight pressing down on me, like the air itself was heavier than it should have been. The room was quiet, Clarissa still asleep beside me, her breathing soft and even, like nothing in the world could touch her. I didn't feel that peace, not after yesterday, not after sitting at that cafe table like some stray they'd reluctantly let tag along. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, the fan spinning lazy circles above me, and decided I wasn't chasing them anymore. If they didn't want me around, I'd stop begging for a seat at their table. I got up, pulled on a pair of shorts and a faded t-shirt, and slipped out without waking her. The resort was waking up too, staff rolling carts down the halls, the faint smell of fresh bread drifting from somewhere. I grabbed a coffee from the lobby and sat outside, the morning sun warm on my face, the ocean stretching out in front of me. I tried to enjoy it, to let the sound of the waves wash away the mess in my head, but it didn't work. All I could think about was how they'd left me out again and again. Breakfast, sure, but I had a feeling it didn't stop there. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, scrolling through Nora's feed just to see. There it was, pictures from yesterday afternoon, all of them on a sailboat, grinning against a backdrop of blue water and sky. Gregory with his arm around Clarissa, Marilyn shielding her eyes from the sun, Nora posing at the helm. Not a single shot with me in it. Not a mention that I even existed. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the like button, then swiped it away. They'd gone sailing without me. No text, no heads up, nothing. I checked Clarissa's page too, same deal. More pics, more smiles, more proof I wasn't part of their little world. My coffee tasted bitter now, even with the sugar I'd dumped in it, and I set it down on the table, my hands curling into fists. I thought about texting her, asking why, but what was the point? She'd just shrug it off like she always did. I stayed out there for a while, watching people come and go, couples holding hands, families chasing kids around, feeling more alone than I ever had. By the time I went back to the room, Clarissa was up, brushing her hair in front of the mirror. She didn't look at me when I walked in, just kept pulling the brush through her dark strands like it was the most important thing in the world. Hey, I said, keeping my voice steady, you guys have fun yesterday? She paused, just for a second, then nodded. Yeah, it was nice. Sailing was good. That was it. No sorry, no explanation, just it was nice. I leaned against the door frame, watching her, waiting for more. Nothing came. Would have been cool to join, I said, crossing my arms. She turned then, finally meeting my eyes, and I saw that flicker of annoyance I knew too well. You could have come if you wanted, she said, like it was my fault. We didn't know where you were. I laughed, short and sharp, because that was a lie, and we both knew it. You didn't tell me, I shot back, stepping closer. No one said a word about sailing, or the vineyard tour I saw on Nora's story. You just left. She rolled her eyes, setting the brush down with a little clack. You're being sensitive, she said, her voice flat. It's just how my family is. They like to stick to their traditions, okay? It's not about you. I stared at her, my jaw tight, feeling the heat creep up my neck. Traditions. That was her excuse, like it made sense to ditch your husband without a heads up, to post pictures all over the internet while I sat around wondering where the hell everyone went. Right? I said, nodding slow, traditions. She turned back to the mirror, picking up her brush again, like the conversation was over. I wanted to yell, to grab her by the shoulders and make her see how messed up this was, but I didn't. I just stood there, watching her, the woman I'd promised my life to, acting like I was the problem for wanting to be included. So what's today? I asked, keeping my tone even. Anything I should know about? She shrugged, God, that shrug again, and said, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Maybe the beach. No invite, no plan, just more of the same. I took a deep breath, letting it out slow, and smiled at her. Not a happy smile, but a calm one, quiet, like I'd figured something out. Perfect, I said, my voice low. Because I have my own way too. She didn't catch it, didn't even look up, just kept brushing her hair like nothing had changed. But something had. I walked over to the window, staring out at the ocean, my mind racing. I'd been playing their game, sitting alone at dinner, chasing them to breakfast, scrolling through their pictures like some outsider begging for a crumb. No more. If they had their traditions, fine. I'd start my own. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I could feel it building inside me, a spark of something hard and steady. I turned back to her, watching her fuss with her hair, and kept that smile on my face. Yeah, I said, mostly to myself, my way. She didn't hear me, or if she did, she didn't care. But that was okay. She'd figure it out soon enough. I lay awake that night, long after Clarissa's breathing settled into that slow, deep rhythm of sleep. The room was dark, just a sliver of moonlight slipping through the curtains, casting shadows on the wall. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Her shrug, her "it's just how they are." The way she let her family push me out without a second thought. It played on a loop in my head, each memory sharper than the last. Gregory's smug voice, Marilyn's blank stare, Nora's little smirk, and Clarissa doing nothing. I turned onto my side, staring at her outline under the blanket, and felt something shift inside me. I wasn't mad anymore, not the hot, loud kind of mad. This was colder, quieter, like a decision I didn't even have to argue with myself about. I was done waiting for them to let me in. If they wanted to play their game, I'd play mine. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her, and grabbed my laptop from the desk. The screen glowed bright in the dark, stinging my eyes as I sat on the couch by the window. I pulled up every reservation I'd made for this trip, everything I'd put on my card, under my name, because I'd wanted to treat them, to show I could be part of this family. The resort rooms, the car rental, the fancy dinners, the spa day Marilyn wouldn't shut up about, the yacht tour Gregory kept bragging he'd booked. It was all mine to give, and now it was mine to take away. I started with the rooms. 3 clicks, and their suite was gone, canceled without a trace. The confirmation email popped up, reservation terminated. I didn't hesitate, moved on to the car rental next. Another few clicks, and the SUV we'd been using was off the books, set to be picked up by the agency at dawn. I felt a little jolt in my chest, not guilt, but something alive, like I was finally doing something instead of just taking it. The dinners, those overpriced meals they'd eaten without me, canceled. The spa day Marilyn had been gushing about, with her massages and facials, erased. I pictured her face when she found out, that tight little frown she'd get, and it almost made me smile. The yacht tour was last, Gregory's big prize, the one he'd been yapping about since we got here. I hovered over the cancel button for a second, imagining him standing at the dock, red-faced and confused, then clicked it. Gone. Every single thing they'd taken for granted, every plan they'd made without me, wiped out in under 10 minutes. I wasn't done yet, though. I'd brought a portable Wi-Fi router for the trip, my name, my account, my password. I logged in, changed it to something they'd never guess, and disconnected every device but mine. Let them figure out how to post their precious pictures now. By the time I shut the laptop, the clock on the nightstand said 3:47 a.m. The room was still, Clarissa hadn't moved, and the ocean outside hummed like it was cheering me on. I leaned back on the couch, my hands behind my head, and let out a long, slow breath. It felt good, better than I'd expected. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was in control. I crawled back into bed, the sheets cool against my skin, and closed my eyes, knowing sunrise would bring a reckoning I'd set in motion. When I woke up, the room was bright, and Clarissa was already in the shower, the water running loud behind the closed door. I got up, packed a small bag, just my clothes, my wallet, my keys, and checked my phone. No alerts yet, no panicked calls. They wouldn't notice until they tried to use something I'd taken away. I grabbed the car keys from the dresser, the ones for the rental I'd canceled, and headed out. The hallway was quiet, the resort still waking up, and I made it to the parking lot without seeing a soul. The SUV sat there, gleaming in the morning light, and I tossed my bag in the back. I drove off, not looking back, the engine humming under me as I left Cape Haven behind. 2 towns over, I found a new place, a high-end resort with a view that put ours to shame. I booked a solo suite, handed over my card, and walked into a room that was mine alone. No Gregory, no Marilyn, no Clarissa shrugging me off. I ordered breakfast, eggs, bacon, a stack of pancakes with extra syrup, and sat by the window, watching the ocean roll in. The first bite was heaven, the coffee hot and strong, and I felt lighter than I had in days. My phone buzzed, then Clarissa's name on the screen. I let it ring, took another bite, and watched it go to voicemail. A minute later, it buzzed again, Gregory this time. Then Nora. I didn't answer. When Clarissa called back, I picked up, leaning back in my chair, the sun warm on my face. "Where are you?" she said, her voice tight, cracking a little. "Everything's gone, the rooms, the car, everything." I chewed slowly, savoring the pancake, then swallowed. "I'm enjoying my vacation," I said, calm as anything. "My way." She started to say something, but I hung up, set the phone down, and took another sip of coffee. This was it, my tradition now. And I wasn't going back. I sat there in my new suite, the tray of breakfast still warm in front of me, the ocean stretching out beyond the window like a promise I'd finally kept to myself. The pancakes were gone, the coffee cup half empty, and I felt this strange calm settle over me, like I'd shed something heavy I didn't even know I'd been carrying. The phone kept buzzing on the table, Clarissa, Gregory, Nora, one after the other, like a swarm of bees I'd kicked loose. I didn't pick up, not yet. I wanted them to feel it first, to wake up to the mess I'd made of their perfect little trip. I pictured Gregory stomping around the lobby, barking at some poor desk clerk about the canceled rooms, Marilyn clutching her purse like it could save her spa day, Nora whining about the Wi-Fi, and Clarissa, my wife, the one who was supposed to stand by me, scrambling to figure out where I'd gone. I let the calls stack up, the voicemails piling in, and leaned back in my chair, the sun warming my face. This was my morning now, and I wasn't sharing it with anyone. After a while, I played the first voicemail, Clarissa's voice, sharp and shaky, spilling out of the speaker. "Where are you? The hotel says our rooms are canceled. The car's gone. We don't know what's happening. Call me back, please." I deleted it, moved to the next one. Gregory this time, his tone all gravel and rage. "What the hell did you do, you little punk? Fix this now." I smirked, deleted that one too. Nora's was short, just a whiny, "This isn't funny, where's the Wi-Fi?" I didn't bother saving it. They kept coming, one after another, a chorus of panic I'd orchestrated with a few clicks the night before. I finished my coffee, letting the bitterness linger on my tongue, and decided it was time to answer. Clarissa's name flashed up again, and I picked up, keeping my voice steady, casual, like I was ordering room service. "Hey," I said, swirling the last sip in my cup. "Where are you?" she snapped, her words tumbling out fast. "Everything's gone. The rooms, the car, the dinner reservations. What did you do?" I set the cup down, leaned forward, and took a slow breath. "I'm enjoying my vacation," I said, letting each word hang there. "My way." There was a pause, a long one, and I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven, like she couldn't decide whether to yell or cry. "What's that supposed to mean?" she finally said, her voice cracking. "It means I'm done," I told her, calm as the sea outside my window. "You wanted your traditions? Fine. I've got mine now." I hung up before she could answer, tossed the phone onto the table, and stood up to stretch. The suite was quiet, just the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant crash of waves. I walked to the balcony, slid the glass door open, and stepped out. The air was warm, salty, and clean, and I leaned on the railing, looking out at the water. This was mine, my spot, my peace, my rules. I didn't know what they were doing back in Cape Haven, and for the first time, I didn't care. I went back inside, grabbed my wallet, and headed down to the resort's restaurant. It was lunchtime now, the place buzzing with people, couples laughing, kids running around, waiters weaving through with trays. I took a table by the window, ordered a burger and a beer, and watched the world go by. My phone buzzed again, Clarissa texting this time. "This isn't funny. Where are you? We need the car." I ignored it, took a bite of the burger when it came, the meat juicy and hot, and washed it down with a cold gulp of beer. Another text. "Please, just tell us what's going on." I didn't reply. Let them figure it out. They'd realize soon enough that every reservation, every little luxury they'd been counting on, was tied to me, and I'd cut the strings. I finished my meal slow, savoring it, then ordered a slice of cheesecake just because I could. The phone kept lighting up, Gregory now, with a string of curses I didn't bother reading, then Clarissa again, her tone shifting from mad to desperate. "We're stuck. Okay? Tell me where you are." I wiped my hands on a napkin, leaned back, and typed out a single word. "Good." "Send it," then turned the phone face down. I wasn't going back, not to the resort, not to their table, not to the life where I was the guy they forgot. I paid the bill, left a big tip, and walked out into the afternoon sun. The new resort had a pool, a sleek blue rectangle surrounded by lounge chairs, and I grabbed one, kicking off my shoes and lying back. The water sparkled, kids splashed at the shallow end, and I closed my eyes, letting the heat soak into me. This was my vacation now, no chasing, no waiting, no pretending I fit where I didn't. My phone buzzed one more time, Clarissa's voice in another voicemail, softer now, almost pleading. I don't know what you're doing, but we can talk about this. Just come back. I deleted it without a second thought. I wasn't talking. I wasn't fixing. I was done. The sun climbed higher, the day stretched out ahead of me, and I felt something I hadn't in a long time free. They could panic all they wanted. I'd started this fire, and I was going to let it burn. I woke up the next morning in my new suite, the sheets crisp and cool against my skin, the sound of the ocean drifting in through the cracked balcony door. It was early, the sky still soft with dawn, and I lay there for a minute, letting the quiet sink in. No buzzing phone, no footsteps in the hall, just me in this space I'd carved out for myself. Yesterday felt like a dream. The calls, the texts, the sound of Clarissa's voice cracking over the line, but it was real, and I'd done it. I'd pulled the plug on their whole trip, left them scrambling, and now I was here, 2 towns away, starting over on my terms. I got up, stretched, and ordered room service, coffee, toast, a couple of eggs sunny side up. While I waited, I checked my phone. The screen was lit up with notifications, missed calls, voicemails, a flood of texts that had poured in overnight. I scrolled through them slow, sipping water from a glass on the nightstand. Gregory, you think this is a game? You're done, kid. Marilyn, this is unacceptable. Fix it now. Nora, seriously, where's the car? This sucks. And Clarissa, over and over, starting with anger, then shifting to something else. You've embarrassed us all. Then please, just talk to me. And finally, I don't know what to do. I set the phone down, my jaw tight, and stared out at the water. Embarrass them? That was rich, coming from the woman who'd let me sit alone at dinner, who'd shrugged while her family iced me out. I didn't owe them a damn thing. Not an explanation, not a fix, nothing. The food came, and I ate slow, the eggs hot and the coffee strong, letting the bitterness wake me up. My phone buzzed again, Clarissa calling this time. But I let it ring, watching the screen until it went dark. I wasn't ready to hear her voice yet. I needed this day for me. I cleaned up, pulled on a clean shirt and shorts, and headed out. The new resort was alive. People lounging by the pool, the air thick with sunscreen and laughter. I grabbed a towel from the desk and found a chair near the water, kicking back with a cold soda from the bar. My phone stayed in my pocket, buzzing every now and then, but I ignored it. I watched the waves instead, the way they rolled in steady and sure, and felt my shoulders loosen for the first time in days. They were stranded back in Cape Haven. I knew that much. The rooms were gone, the car picked up by the rental place, the fancy dinners and tours wiped out. I pictured them dragging their bags to some cheap motel, Gregory's face red as he yelled at the staff, Marilyn snapping at anyone who'd listen, Nora sulking over her dead phone. Clarissa would be in the middle, trying to hold it together, probably texting me nonstop. I pulled my phone out, just to see. More messages. We're at a motel now. Thanks to you. From Clarissa. Then this is childish, you know that, right? I smirked, took a sip of my soda, and typed back a single line, enjoy the view. I didn't wait for a reply, just turned the phone off and tossed it into my bag. Let them stew. I spent the day by the pool, swimming a few laps, drying off in the sun, ordering a sandwich when I got hungry. It was simple, easy mine. No one telling me where to sit, no one leaving me out. The hours slipped by, the sun climbing high then dipping low, and I felt lighter with every minute. By evening, I was back in my suite, showered and sitting on the balcony with a glass of wine I'd grabbed from the lobby bar. The sky was orange and pink, the water dark below, and I let my mind wander. What were they doing right now? Fighting, probably. Gregory blaming Clarissa, Marilyn blaming me, Nora just complaining. I didn't care enough to wonder too long. My phone was still off, but I turned it on just to check, one last time before I let the night take over. The screen lit up with more texts, more voicemails. Clarissa's latest. You've made your point, okay? Can we talk? I listened to her voicemail next, her voice softer now, tired. We're at this awful place. No one's happy, and I just want to fix this. Call me. I deleted it, took a long sip of wine, and leaned back in my chair. Fix it. She didn't get it. There was no fixing this. Not the way she wanted. This wasn't about talking it out or going back to how things were. This was about me finally saying no. I grabbed my phone again, pulled up the camera, and snapped a picture, the wine glass in my hand, the ocean dark and endless beyond the railing. I sent it to her with one word. Cheers. Then I turned the phone off for good. Let them figure out the rest. I finished my wine, the night air cool against my skin, and watched the stars poke through the sky. They could rage all they wanted, Gregory with his temper, Marilyn with her whining, Clarissa with her guilt trips. I was done carrying it. This was the fallout, and I was letting it burn out on its own. Tomorrow, I'd figure out my next move, but tonight? Tonight was mine, and it felt damn good. I woke up to the sound of seagulls calling outside my balcony, the morning light slipping through the blinds and painting stripes across the floor. My suite was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels full instead of empty, and I stayed in bed for a minute, just breathing it in. Yesterday had been mine. Poolside, good food, that glass of wine under the stars, and I could still feel the weight I'd shaken off. No more chasing Clarissa's family, no more swallowing their crap. I'd burned their trip to the ground, and I wasn't sorry. I got up, made coffee with the little machine in the room, and sat by the window, watching the ocean wake up with the day. My phone was still off, and I left it that way, not ready to dive back into their mess. I figured they were still at that motel, stewing in their own chaos, and that was fine by me. I finished my coffee, showered, and headed down to the resort's cafe for breakfast, pancakes again, because why not? The place was buzzing with people, families laughing, couples sharing plates, and I took a table by myself, content to watch the world go by. I was halfway through my stack, syrup dripping off my fork, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it on just to check the time, and now there it was, lighting up with a name I didn't expect. Isaac, Clarissa's cousin. I hadn't seen him on this trip. He lived a few states away, but we'd always gotten along at family stuff before. I wiped my hands on a napkin, curious, and opened the text. Dude, it said, just so you know, you're not the first. I stared at it, my fork hovering over the plate, not sure what he meant. Another message came through before I could reply. They did this to Clarissa's ex too. Same crap, pushing him out, testing him, seeing if he'd break. She never told you. My stomach dropped, the pancakes turning heavy in my gut. I set the fork down, my hands resting on the table, and read it again. Her ex-fiancé, some guy named Paul she'd dated years before me, who I'd only heard about in passing. She'd said they split because he couldn't handle her family, and I'd never pushed for more. Now Isaac's words were sinking in, sharp and cold, like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't known I was missing. I texted back, keeping it short. What do you mean? He replied fast. It's their thing, man. Gregory and Marilyn. They've got this sick tradition. They freeze out the new guy, make him feel like dirt, see if he'll stick around. Clarissa knows. She's seen it before. I leaned back in my chair, my coffee going cold, and let that hit me. Clarissa knew. She'd watched her parents pull this on Paul, isolating him, ignoring him, treating him like he didn't belong. And she'd let them do it to me too. All those shrugs, all those it's just their way excuses, weren't just her brushing it off. She'd been part of it, letting it happen, maybe even waiting to see if I'd crack like he did. I sat there, staring out the window at the waves, my mind racing. Isaac texted again. Paul bailed after a year. Guess they thought you'd do the same. Sorry, man. Thought you knew. I didn't reply, just set the phone down and pushed my plate away. The cafe noise faded around me, kids laughing, dishes clinking, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat, loud and steady in my ears. She'd known. That was the truth that cut deepest. Not just that her family was awful, but that she'd stood by and let them test me, like I was some lab rat in their twisted game. I thought about the dinner, the breakfast, the sailing trip. Every time they'd left me out, she'd been there, saying nothing, doing nothing. I'd blamed Gregory's loud mouth, Marilyn's cold shoulder, Nora's smirks, but Clarissa was the one who'd let it happen. My wife, the woman I'd built a life with. I stood up, left cash on the table, and walked out, the sun hot on my face as I headed back to my room. I needed to think, to let this settle. Back in the suite, I sat on the balcony, the ocean air sharp and salty, and replayed it all. Isaac's words were the crack in the mirror. Everything I'd been holding together shattered, and I could see it clear now. This wasn't just a bad trip. This was a pattern, a sick little ritual they'd perfected, and Clarissa had signed off on it. I didn't know Paul, didn't know how he'd broken, but I wasn't him. I hadn't just walked away. I'd fought back, canceled their world out from under them. Maybe that's why they were panicking now, why Clarissa's texts had gone from mad to begging. They didn't expect me to push back. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through her messages again. "We can fix this. I'm sorry. Just talk to me," and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a cold, hard clarity. She'd known, and she'd let me twist in it, waiting to see if I'd measure up. I didn't owe her a talk, didn't owe her anything. I tossed the phone onto the table, leaned back, and watched the waves roll in. This was the truth, ugly and raw, and it changed everything. They'd wanted to see if I'd break. Well, I hadn't. And now they'd have to deal with the pieces. I woke up the next morning with Isaac's text still burning in my head, the truth about Clarissa and her family sitting heavy on my chest like a rock I couldn't push off. The sun was up, streaming through the balcony door, and the ocean outside was calm, but inside me, it was anything but. I'd spent half the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of this trip, every shrug, every excuse she'd thrown my way. She'd known her parents were testing me, known they'd done it before, and she'd let me walk right into it. I wasn't just mad at her family anymore. I was mad at her, at us, at the whole damn thing I'd thought we had. I got up, made coffee, and stood by the window, the mug hot in my hands. My phone was quiet now, no new calls, no texts since last night's flood. They were probably licking their wounds at that motel, figuring out their next move. Good. Let them sweat. I wasn't hiding anymore, though. I was done running from this. I wanted them to see what they'd lost, to face what I'd done. So I texted Clarissa, "Meet me at the Coastal Inn, Conference Room B, 2 p.m. Bring your family." No explanation, no please, just that. She replied fast, "Okay, we'll be there." I set the phone down, finished my coffee, and got ready. I showered, pulled on a clean shirt and jeans, and drove over early, the rental car humming under me as I left my new resort behind. The Coastal Inn was halfway between Cape Haven and where I was now, a neutral spot, small and simple, with a row of meeting rooms off the lobby. I got there at 1:30, booked the room with cash, and waited. The space was plain, long table, a few chairs, a whiteboard on the wall, and I sat at the head, my bag in front of me, papers I'd printed that morning spread out like a battle plan. They walked in at 2:05, all four of them, looking rougher than I'd ever seen. Gregory's face was red, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. Marilyn's hair was flat, her eyes puffy. Nora slouched in behind them, her phone clutched tight, probably still dead from no Wi-Fi. Clarissa came last, her jaw tight, her gaze flicking to me then away. They sat down across from me, the table a wall between us, and nobody said a word at first. I leaned back, hands folded, and let the silence stretch. "What's this about?" Gregory finally barked, his voice loud in the small room. I didn't flinch, just reached into my bag and pulled out the stack of cancellation receipts. I slid them across the table, one by one. "This," I said, tapping the first sheet, "is your resort suite canceled." I slid the next one over. "The car rental gone." Another. "Your yacht tour?" Gregory erased. I kept going. Dinner reservations, Maryland spa day. Every little piece of their trip I torched until the papers fanned out in front of them. Marilyn snatched one up, her lips thinning as she read it. "You did this?" she snapped, her voice sharp. "All of it." I nodded, slow and steady. "Every bit. My card, my name, my call." Gregory slammed a fist on the table, the receipts jumping. "You little," he started, but I cut him off, pulling out my phone. I played Clarissa's voicemails first, the ones from yesterday, her voice going from mad to pleading. "Where are you? Everything's gone." Then I played Isaac's, his calm tone spilling the truth. They did this to her ex too. "Clarissa knows." The room went dead quiet, the air thick with it. Clarissa's face went pale, her hands gripping the table edge. Nora stared at her, eyes wide. Marilyn turned to her daughter, mouth open, but nothing came out. Gregory just glared at me, his knuckles white. "You let this happen," I said, looking straight at Clarissa, my voice low but hard. "You watched them humiliate me, dinner, breakfast, sailing, all of it, and you said nothing. You knew they'd done it before, and you let them do it to me." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes dropping to the table. "It's not," she started, but I shook my head. "Don't. I said. Isaac told me everything. Your sick little tradition, seeing if I'd break. I didn't break, Clarissa. I walked away. Gregory lunged forward, his chair scraping. You're overreacting, you punk. This is nothing. I stood up, matching his height across the table. Nothing? I said, my voice rising for the first time. You shoved me out, treated me like I didn't exist, and I pointed at Clarissa, let it happen. That's not nothing. That's a choice. Marilyn cut in, her tone icy. You've made your point. What now? I grabbed my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and looked at them, really looked at them. Gregory fuming, Marilyn rigid, Nora shrinking, Clarissa silent. Now, I said, you don't fix a home that was never built for you. You leave it behind. Clarissa's head snapped up, her eyes wet. We can fix this, she said, her voice small. Please. I shook my head again, stepping toward the door. No, I told her. You don't get it. I'm not fixing anything. I'm done. I walked out, the door clicking shut behind me, their voices rising in a muffled mess I didn't stick around to hear. The parking lot was hot, the sun glaring off the asphalt, and I got in the car, my hands steady on the wheel. I didn't look back as I drove away, the coastal and shrinking in the rearview. They could keep their traditions, their tests, their broken little family. I'd given them the truth, laid it out raw, and now I was free of it. The road stretched ahead, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. I drove away from the coastal and with the windows down, the wind rushing past me, carrying the salt of the ocean and the weight of what I'd just done. The confrontation was still fresh, Gregory's red face, Marilyn's icy glare, Nora's wide eyes, Clarissa's shaky voice, but it didn't cling to me like I thought it would. It was over, done, and I'd said what I needed to say. The road stretched out ahead, empty and open, and I felt lighter with every mile I put between me and them. I didn't know where I was going yet, just that I wasn't going back, not to Cape Haven, not to that life. I stopped at a gas station an hour later, filled up the tank, and grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler inside. The clerk barely looked at me, just rang me up and handed me my change, and I liked it that way, no questions, no explanations. I sat in the car for a minute, the engine idling, and checked my phone. A few texts from Clarissa, please, let's talk. I didn't mean for this, but I deleted them without replying. Gregory had sent one too, a string of insults I didn't bother reading. I turned the phone off, tossed it into the passenger seat, and pulled back onto the highway. The sun was dipping low now, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, and I kept driving until I hit a small town I didn't know the name of. It had a diner, a motel, a few shops, nothing fancy, just quiet. I checked into the motel, a single room with a lumpy bed and a TV that probably didn't work, and dropped my bag by the door. It wasn't the luxury of the resort, but it was mine, and that was enough. I walked to the diner next door, ordered a burger and fries, and ate alone at a corner booth, the hum of the jukebox filling the space. The food was greasy, simple, perfect. I didn't need anything more. That night, I slept hard, the kind of sleep that comes when you've let go of something big. The next day, I drove back to the city, back to our house, hers now, I guess, and started the paperwork. I called a lawyer I knew from work, filed for separation, and got it rolling before she could even try to stop me. She called a few times over the next week, left voicemails I didn't listen to, sent texts I didn't answer. Marilyn tried too, her messages sharp and demanding, like she could guilt me into coming back. Even Gregory fired off a few, mostly threats and curses, but they didn't touch me. I was done letting them in. A week later, I got a text from Isaac. They're imploding. Clarissa moved out. Gregory won't speak to her. I stared at it, the words sinking in, and typed back. Good. That was it. No long reply. No questions. Just that. I didn't care about the details, didn't need to know how their little world was falling apart. It wasn't my problem anymore. Over the next few months, I kept moving, found a new place, a small apartment downtown with a view of the river, nothing fancy but mine. I sold the house, split the money with Clarissa through the lawyers, and signed the divorce papers 6 months later. She didn't fight it, didn't show up to contest anything, just let it happen. I heard from a mutual friend she'd moved to another state, started over somewhere new, but I didn't ask where. I didn't need to know. The day the divorce was final, I sat on my new balcony with a beer, the river glinting under the afternoon sun, and felt the last piece of that old life slip away. It wasn't just a marriage I'd walked away from, it was a whole messed up legacy, a family built on control and silence and cruelty, and I'd burned my way out of it. I thought about Cape Haven sometimes, the resort, that first night at the dinner table, but it didn't hurt anymore. It was just a story now, something that happened to a guy I used to be. I started small traditions of my own: Friday nights at a bar down the street, Sunday mornings with coffee and the paper, trips to the coast when I felt like it. No one told me where to sit. No one left me out. My phone buzzed less those days, just friends checking in, work stuff, normal things. Isaac texted once more, months later. "You good?" I wrote back, "Yeah, better than ever." And I meant it. I'd taken their test, their twisted little game, and turned it on its head. They'd wanted to see if I'd break, but I didn't. I walked away, built something new, something that fit me. The river kept flowing outside my window, steady and sure, and I leaned back in my chair, the beer cold in my hand. This was peace, not the fake kind I'd chased with Clarissa's family, but the real stuff, hard-won and quiet. I didn't just leave them behind. I left the version of me who'd put up with it. And now, every day was mine, on my terms, free by the fire I'd set myself. It started with silence, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't rattle, doesn't punch a hole through the wall. No, this silence was worse. It was still, calculated, final. The kind of silence that settles over a battlefield after all the weapons have been dropped but before the bodies are counted. That was the silence I sat in when I found out. My wife, Sienna, my Sienna, had been sleeping with my brother, Tobias. Of all people. It wasn't even some accident she regretted. She loved him. That's what she said in the voicemail I wasn't supposed to hear. "I'm tired of pretending, Tobias," she whispered, breathless. "I love you. I don't want to go back to him." I must have replayed it 20 times, each repetition draining something vital out of me. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't yell. I just sat there and listened to the sound of my world cracking like glass beneath a slow, deliberate heel. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I wanted to see if she'd say it herself. She didn't. She came home that night smelling of eucalyptus and lies, tossed her bag on the couch like nothing was out of place, and kissed me like habit. Not love. Just motion. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I waited. I thought, stupidly, that maybe my family would have my back. That blood still meant something. That someone would say, what she did was unforgivable, or, you didn't deserve this, or even just, I'm sorry. But the apology never came. Instead, a texted from my mother, Corinne. I read it 3 times before it fully sank in. "It's best if you don't come this year. It'll be too awkward." Awkward? For who? For the woman who ripped my heart out and handed it to my brother like a wedding gift? For the man who used to play video games in my room and steal my clothes, now stealing my wife too? Was I the problem now? I stared at my phone like it had turned into something poisonous. My thumb hovered over the screen as if I could will it to change, to say something else. Something decent. Something human. But no. Just those cold, clipped words from a woman who raised me. The silence broke the next day when my dad, Raymond, called. His voice was impatient, like he'd been waiting for me to respond, and was annoyed I hadn't. "You need to stop playing the victim," he said. "You were never right for her." There was a pause. I think he expected me to fight back, to beg for approval like I used to when I was 16 and trying to borrow the car. But I just let the words sink in like stones in a frozen lake. "You were never right for her." It echoed in my chest, over and over, until I didn't recognize the sound of my own pulse anymore. Then Tobias called. Or maybe I called him. I honestly don't remember. All I know is I heard his voice, that smug cadence he always used when he got away with something. "She chose the better man," he said. Just like that. Like this was a high school rivalry, and he'd finally won the trophy. I don't even remember what my face looked like in that moment, but I remember smiling. Bitter. Tight. The kind of smile that hurts more than any cry. "You've all shown me exactly who you are," I told him. "Thanks for making it easy." Then I blocked them, one by one. Deleted their numbers, their threads, their photos. It felt like surgery, cutting out a tumor you'd convinced yourself was just part of your body. Painful. Necessary. Clean. But that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. I spent the rest of that night alone, lights off, music off, everything off. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the walls, the echo of memories that had nowhere to go. I looked around the apartment that Sienna and I used to decorate together, our fake little love nest. Her shoes by the door, the photo of us at the lake still framed on the hallway table. I didn't touch them. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a dramatic scene. Let them believe I cracked. Let them think I spiraled. I didn't care. Because in that silence, Between my mother's text and my father's betrayal and my brother's smirk, I found something else. Clarity. They had cast me out. Fine. Let them. But I wouldn't be the one begging to come back. I wouldn't be the one knocking on the window while they sat inside at the holiday table I helped pay for, laughing over wine and carving turkeys with hands that had stabbed me in the back. No, I would not be the ghost in their perfect family portrait. They disinvited me? Good. Because I was about to rewrite the guest list. And none of them were getting in. I packed what was left of my life into the back seat of my car. A few duffel bags. 2 boxes of clothes. My old laptop. Everything else I left behind, her jewelry on the vanity, the wine glasses we never used, the live, laugh, love, print on the wall that mocked me now. I didn't slam the door when I left. I closed it softly. Like I was afraid even the house might hear me and feel sorry. Malcolm lived 20 minutes across town. My best friend since college. We used to joke that if our lives ever blew up, we'd end up in each other's spare rooms watching bad movies and drinking cheap beer. Well, life blew up, and there I was, standing outside his apartment, heart heavy in my chest, fingers wrapped tight around the steering wheel, trying to find the strength to knock. The door opened before I could. Malcolm was already waiting, holding a coffee mug and wearing that familiar look. Half concern, half, say the word, and I'll burn the world down for you. You look like shit, he said. I feel worse. He stepped aside. Spare room's yours. No questions asked. I nodded, swallowing hard. The place smelled like cinnamon and old leather. Books stacked sideways on tables. A hoodie draped over the couch. Lived in, but safe. The kind of place where nothing unexpected happens. No betrayals. No whispered phone calls. Just the steady hum of someone who still believes in loyalty. I dropped my bags in the guest room, small, square, and spotless. A bed with clean sheets. A lamp that actually worked. No trace of my past here. Just the future I didn't know what to do with. I didn't cry. I didn't have the energy. I just collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, trying to forget the way my name had been erased from the holiday invitations. Like I was the one who broke something. The days blurred. I didn't go out much. Didn't shave. Barely ate. I lived like a ghost. I'd wake up, scroll, sleep, repeat. Social media became a daily punch to the gut. There they were, Tobias and Sienna, smiling in my parents' living room, laughing like nothing was broken. A wine bottle on the table. My mother's golden centerpiece gleaming beneath warm lights. The same table I built with my own hands. Sanded it down in my father's garage. Spent weekends measuring, varnishing, staining. My dad said, "You build this, son, and one day your kids lead at it." Now Tobias was sitting at the head, fork in one hand, Sienna on his arm like they'd always belonged. And me? I was in a spare room that didn't even have curtains. What hurt the most wasn't Sienna. It wasn't even Tobias. It was Corinne, my mother, posting pictures like I never existed. Captioning one with, "Love always finds a way." She wasn't just condoning it. She was celebrating it. I'd been replaced. Smudged out like a typo in the family photo album. One morning, I found myself staring at that post for 10 straight minutes. The comments section overflowed with hearts and beautiful couple, and meant to be. One of my cousins even replied, "Glad to see her with someone who treats her right." That one cut so deep I nearly dropped the phone. I thought about replying, about setting the record straight, but I didn't, because this wasn't about proving them wrong. This was about realizing the people who claimed to love me never really did. Malcolm came home that night with 2 takeout bags and a 6-pack. "You need to eat and shower. In that order." "I'm not hungry." "Too bad. I didn't ask." We ate on the couch. Chicken wings and fries. Something about the grease and the silence made me feel human again. "You ever going to tell me what really happened?" he asked gently. I shook my head. "You already know enough." "Fair." He took a swig of beer. "But for what it's worth, you didn't deserve this." I looked at him, grateful. Not just for the words, but for the fact that he didn't follow them with, "But family is family," or "Just try to move on." He didn't try to fix it. He just sat with me in the mess. That night, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly overhead. I thought about the first time Sienna met Tobias. She laughed too hard at his jokes, touched his arm when she talked. I chalked it up to friendliness. I trusted her. I trusted them all. That was my mistake. But trust isn't weakness. Betrayal is. And they were the ones who chose that path. I wasn't going to be their ghost anymore. I wasn't going to scroll through their lives like some unwanted memory. They thought I would disappear, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't supposed to care anymore. That's what they wanted, that I'd drift off, vanish quietly, take the loss, and move on like some sad footnote in their perfect story. Tobias gets the girl. The family smiles again. The black sheep disappears into silence. But the thing about being forgotten is, it sets you free. No one sees you coming. It started on a cold Tuesday. I was sitting on Malcolm's floor, surrounded by a pile of unopened mail, eating cereal out of a coffee mug when a thought struck me. Tobias was living in that duplex. The one I co-signed. The one my parents begged me to put my name on so Tobias could get back on his feet after his third failed startup. I had almost forgotten about it in the chaos, but I never signed anything without scanning a copy. And somewhere, deep in my inbox, was that contract. I searched for it, clicked through old emails, spam folders, scanned PDFs until I found it. There it was, both our names. Mine first. I was still listed as co-owner, which meant I had rights, which meant Tobias was sleeping in a house that had my name on the deed and laughing like he built it himself. I stared at that document for a long time, heartbeat ticking like a countdown clock. Then I opened a fresh note on my phone and started listing everything Sienna still owed me. We'd split expenses when we moved in together, at least, that was the plan. New couch, bed frame, rugs, even the espresso machine she insisted on and used maybe twice. I covered more than I admitted. Back then, I just wanted peace. But now, I wanted justice. Legal, cold, emotionless justice. I tallied it all. The receipts were in an old shared folder we never deleted. Stupid mistake on her part. I screenshotted every one, added the totals, created a formal invoice. $3,872.91. Not even close to the price of betrayal, but a start. That evening, I sent Malcolm a message. I'm done being quiet. He sent back a single thumbs up emoji and a pizza order link. My kind of friend. The next day, I sent an email to my parents. Subject line, regarding property co-ownership. It read, as co-signer and co-owner of the duplex at 1436 Maple Street, I'm initiating my withdrawal from the property. You have 30 days to buy out my share or I will force a sale through legal proceedings. All communication going forward should be done through email for documentation purposes. I stared at the screen before hitting send. My finger hovered for a beat. Then I clicked. A small, quiet satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Within 5 minutes, my phone exploded. First, my mom. You can't be serious. This is Tobias's home. Then my dad. What are you trying to prove? Don't ruin this family. Even Tobias texted. You're really doing this? I didn't reply. I left them all on read. Because it wasn't about being heard anymore. It was about being felt. They'd forgotten who they were messing with. I wasn't loud. I wasn't dramatic. But I was meticulous. I played the long game. And they'd just given me the opening. Later that evening, I sent Sienna the invoice. Attached PDFs. Labeled. Itemized. Every dollar accounted for. Subject line. Outstanding balances. Formal request for payment. She replied 5 minutes later. A heart emoji. No text. No acknowledgement. Just that little red heart, like this was a joke. Like I was some ex still pining for her attention. I sat there, blinking at it. My jaw clenched. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I deleted the draft I had started, no emotion, no back and forth, and sent her a second email. This one wasn't friendly. This is a formal demand for payment. Failure to comply within 14 business days will result in escalation to small claims court. I attached the formal letterhead, drafted it using a free legal template. It looked serious because it was. That night, Malcolm poured us both a drink. Bourbon. Neat. He raised his glass to mine. To flipping the board. I clinked it. To no more letting things go. They thought they broke me. What they really did was free me from any illusion that they ever had my back. Sienna, Tobias, my parents, they could smile in their holiday photos all they wanted. But now there'd be a paper trail. One they couldn't scrub with cute captions or fake apologies. I went to bed that night and, for the first time in weeks, slept without waking up in the middle of the night replaying their voices. I didn't dream about the betrayal. I didn't hear my mother's text or my father's judgment or Tobias's smirk. Just silence. Not the kind that follows pain, but the kind that makes room for power. They wanted me quiet. They forgot silence can roar. The morning the email landed, the sky was a dull stretch of gray, the kind that pressed on your shoulders like a weight you couldn't shake off. But me? I felt lighter, lighter than I had in months. Because the message had been sent, and I wasn't waiting on anyone's approval anymore. Not my mother's understanding, not my father's pride, and definitely not Tobias's permission. I took my time getting out of bed, brewed coffee slowly, poured it into a chipped mug Malcolm never replaced because it reminded him of college. I sat on the worn couch in the living room, phone resting face up on the armrest, and watched the rain tap against the window like a rhythm only I understood. It wasn't peace exactly, but it was movement. I wasn't stuck anymore. Around 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Dad. I didn't answer. Then Mom. Ignored. Then Tobias. 3 messages, one after another. You're being ridiculous. Let's talk. You're really doing this? Yes, I was. I left every message on read, not out of pettiness, but out of clarity. If I had learned anything, it was that responding to people who only reach out when their comfort is threatened was a waste of breath. By noon, the phone was silent. That afternoon, I went one step further. I opened a new document and started drafting the official motion for a buyout or forced sale. I had no lawyer yet, but I wasn't bluffing. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud drive. Title, deed, proof of cosign, every receipt from our renovation. The moment they thought I was out of moves, I was already 3 ahead. At 2:07 p.m., Sienna responded to the formal invoice I'd sent her the night before. Her reply was 3 words, "You're so petty." I stared at the screen for a long beat, then typed, "Petty doesn't come with receipts." "I do." Then I attached the demand letter again, this time with a deadline clearly listed. 14 business days. No exceptions. 2 minutes later, she replied with a gif. Some actress rolling her eyes. I didn't even know which one. I didn't care. I closed the thread, took a breath, and muted her contact. This wasn't about emotional validation. It was about business, about principle, about boundaries. It was about power. And for the first time, I wasn't handing mine away. The next day, Malcolm and I were on the balcony, watching traffic crawl by and eating cold pizza from the box. He leaned against the railing and said, "You think any of them feel bad?" "No," I answered. "They feel exposed." "That's not the same thing." He nodded slowly, chewing. "Still, you're coming back harder than I expected." I didn't reply right away. My eyes traced the skyline, the way the city stretched into haze like a story still being written. Then I said, "It's not about revenge. Not really. It's about reminding them that I wasn't some ornament they could throw away when it clashed with the decor." "Poetic," he said with a smirk. "Practical," I replied. Later that night, my mother called again. This time I let it ring, just so I could hear her voice crack through voicemail. "You don't have to do this," she said. "You're not this kind of person." That part made me laugh out loud. As if being the kind of person who expected fairness, who enforced boundaries, who sent polite legal emails instead of screaming matches, somehow made me the villain. That had always been their dynamic. Twist the narrative just enough that the one who walked away looked like the problem. But this time, they couldn't twist it without tripping over the paper trail I left behind. Every forwarded receipt, every signed agreement, every polite message with timestamps and clear language. They weren't just proof. They were power plays. Paper cuts that bled real consequences. I sent a follow-up email to my father that night. It was short. Simple. "Since you're so concerned about family embarrassment, I suggest moving quickly. A forced sale would become a matter of public record. You have 21 days left." No reply. Just silence. Good. By the weekend, the real estate agent I'd contacted had drafted a preliminary listing agreement. I hadn't signed yet, but I wanted them to feel the heat. I sent it to Tobias's email with a short note. "Consider this your courtesy preview." He replied within an hour. "You think you're scaring me?" I didn't respond. Because I wasn't trying to scare him. I was ending him, at least the version of him that coasted on my silence, my support, my blind spots. The version that took everything and gave nothing but smirks and betrayal in return. That Sunday, Sienna sent the first of 2 payments. Venmo, $2,000. Caption, "Happy now?" I didn't respond. The next day, she sent the remaining $1,872.91. No caption, just silence. Then she blocked me. I laughed when the app told me the transaction couldn't be replied to. Like that erased the debt. Like that undid the mess. But I didn't chase it. The money wasn't justice, but it was acknowledgement. And acknowledgement, when it came from people who tried to erase you, was almost better than an apology. That night, I sat back in Malcolm's recliner, turned off my phone, and finally let the silence settle, not as a weight, but as a shield. No phone calls, no gaslighting, no fake reconciliations wrapped in guilt. Just me. And for once, that was enough. It happened on a Thursday. Gray clouds outside, late morning. I had just stepped out of the shower when the pounding started on the door. Not a knock, not a friendly tap, a fist, over and over like someone was trying to break through. I froze for half a second, heart stuttering in my chest, then threw on a shirt and opened the door. Tobias. Hair disheveled, eyes wild, jaw clenched so tight I thought he might shatter his own teeth. And that smug little twist in his mouth he always wore when he thought he was winning? Gone. I need to talk to you, he snapped, stepping forward like he could push his way through. Malcolm appeared from the kitchen before I could even open my mouth. Not here, man. Back off. But Tobias wasn't here for calm. He shoved Malcolm aside hard enough to rattle the wall and stormed into the apartment like he still had a right to something. I backed up a step, my fist instinctively clenched at my side, a quiet pulse of rage tapping in my chest. You think this is funny? He barked. You think ruining my life is some kind of game? I stared at him. Ruining your life? I sent an invoice and made a legal request about a property that I co-own. If you can't handle consequences. He lunged. Not a punch, not a full-blown attack, but a shove fast and desperate and fueled by whatever bruised ego had finally burst open inside him. My back hit the edge of the table. Pain flared along my ribs. I shoved back, harder. And then Malcolm was between us, arms up, voice low but razor-sharp. Get out. Now. Tobias's face twisted like he couldn't believe this was real, that someone wasn't bending to his tantrum. You've always been a bitter little loser, he hissed at me, voice shaking. Sienna saw it. Everyone sees it. You're nothing without us. I stepped forward, closer than I had before. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You mean without you? I said, because I'm doing just fine. You're the one pounding on doors like a child. He sneered. She chose the better man. I nodded slowly, letting the words hang in the air. Then I said the one thing that gutted him. She didn't choose. She settled. Malcolm pushed him gently, but firmly toward the door. Get out. Before I call the cops. Tobias pointed a trembling finger at me. You think this is over? You think this makes you the good guy? No, I said. But it makes me free. The door slammed behind him. For a long moment, none of us moved. Malcolm let out a long breath and turned to me. You all right? Physically? Yeah. Emotionally? I shrugged. That was overdue. He gave a short, bitter laugh. He's not used to people saying no. I nodded. And he definitely wasn't ready for the consequences. Later that evening, I sent a message to my mother. It wasn't a warning. It was a line in the sand. If Tobias shows up again, I will file for a restraining order. This isn't a threat. This is a promise. Control him. She replied within minutes. Don't threaten family. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed. Then start acting like one. I didn't get a reply after that. Not for hours. When it finally came, it was vague and cold. He's under a lot of pressure. Maybe give him some grace. Grace. That word again. Always asked of me. Never offered to me. The next day, Malcolm got a new doorbell camera installed. You shouldn't have to live like you're waiting for the next blow-up, he said. He was right. I wasn't just dealing with a breakup or betrayal. I was dealing with a man who had spent his entire life skating by on charm and favoritism, and now he was slipping. Hard. Tobias had always been the golden boy. The one who just needed a little help. The one who had potential. The one who could lie straight to someone's face and still get handed another chance. And now, he was unraveling because the person he'd stolen from, lied to, betrayed, me, had finally stopped playing along. He had no more excuses. No more backup. No more cushion. That weekend, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Minutes later, a voicemail came through. Sienna. Her voice was slow, deliberate, tired. I don't know what you're trying to prove with all of this. But I hope you're happy. He's not who I thought he was. And you? Well, maybe I didn't know you either. Goodbye. I deleted the message. Because I didn't need closure from a woman who only reached out when her safety net collapsed. I wasn't her therapist. I wasn't her fallback. I was the man they underestimated. And now I was the one holding the pen. They thought I'd crumble. But Tobias was the one breaking apart. And I hadn't even really started yet. The duplex listing went live on a crisp Monday morning, tucked between family-friendly homes and overpriced condos on the agency's website. The photos were bright and professional: white walls, clean countertops, staged furniture that made it look like someone actually cared about the space. I stared at the page for a while, not because I was second-guessing the decision, but because I wanted to remember what it felt like to take control of something they thought I'd forgotten. By lunchtime, the first text rolled in. "Tobias, you can't be serious. Take the listing down." "Mom, this is humiliating." "Dad, you're destroying the family." I read them like spam. Detached, quietly satisfied. Malcolm peered over my shoulder as I scrolled. "Didn't take long. Didn't think it would. You want me to screen your text for the week?" I smiled. Tempting. Tobias called twice that afternoon. I didn't pick up. Then he sent a voice note. One I didn't bother opening. He had used his voice enough, shouted enough, lied enough. Now it was my turn to be the quiet one. The real estate agent called a few hours later to confirm showing times. I gave her the green light. No hesitations. No guilt. That evening, as I stepped out onto Malcolm's balcony with a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed again. Sienna. This time, a Venmo notification. $1,500. Caption: partial. I blinked. Partial? We were past the point of partial. I had sent her the invoice weeks ago. She ignored it, then mocked it, then blocked me. Now she wanted to dribble pennies back into my life like that would undo the damage? A second notification followed. $2,000. Caption: final. It wasn't the money that hit me, it was the nerve. The casual way she made it transactional. Like we were just settling a dinner bill after a bad date. I didn't reply. Didn't even open the app again that night. The funds would clear. That was enough. And yet, as I watched the city lights flicker beneath a clouded sky, a different kind of emotion stirred. Not sadness. Not rage. Closure. Not the fairy tale kind. The real kind. The kind you carve out of wreckage when no one offers it to you. The next day, my mom called. Again. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker for Malcolm to hear while we made eggs. Her voice trembled, but not with remorse. With frustration. "You're tearing this family apart. That property was Tobias's fresh start. You don't need the money. This is vindictive." I cracked an egg harder than necessary. Malcolm said, "You should send her a fruit basket. Every time she talks, you look more like the reasonable one." I almost laughed. Almost. Later that week, the whispers started. It began with a message from cousin Denise, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, I don't know what's going on with the family, but I heard Tobias is getting kicked out. Just wanted to check on you." Check on me? Funny. But I didn't ignore it. I replied, "Appreciate the message. Long story short, he and Sienna betrayed me. The family chose sides. I chose peace." She didn't reply right away. Then, damn, I didn't know it was like that. Exactly. People had been fed a version of events where I was the bitter one, the angry brother who couldn't handle a breakup. But now, the narrative was shifting. Sienna had posted a moody quote about learning who your real friends are. Tobias deleted his Instagram altogether. My mom posted a picture of a wine glass and a Bible verse with the caption "Faith in Trials." Meanwhile, I posted nothing. Didn't need to. Because truth doesn't need a microphone, it just waits. And eventually, it echoes. One of the neighbors near the duplex contacted the agent and asked, "Isn't that the house the Vance boy used to stay in?" That was how I knew the story was circulating. My parents' golden castle, the illusion of the perfect family, had cracks now. And they couldn't plaster over them with smiles and wine glasses anymore. The agent told me Tobias tried to contact her directly, asked if she could slow things down. She declined. Smart woman. The showing went well. A young couple with a toddler loved the space. Said they could picture their daughter growing up there. I almost smiled at that. It wasn't just about kicking Tobias out. It was about turning something poisoned into something clean again. By the time the offer came through, full price, I didn't hesitate. I forwarded the paperwork to my parents. My dad responded first. "This is madness." Then a follow-up. "You were always dramatic." That word again. Always. But I was done playing the part they wrote for me. My mom finally texted me a few days later. "I hope this was worth it." I didn't reply. Because it was. Tobias was losing his cushion. Sienna had paid, if only in dollars, not dignity. And I was no longer waiting for someone to rescue me from the fire. I had learned to walk through it. And now they could all feel the heat. They always said Tobias had the charm. That easy grin, the way he could walk into a room and make everyone lean in closer. It didn't matter that he never finished anything he started or that his business ventures were mostly smoke and mirrors. He looked the part, said the right things, and that was enough for them. For years, I let him wear that title, the golden boy. I let him soak up the praise while I handled the hard parts. I kept things running, cleaned up his messes, paid off his overdraft fees more than once, took the blame when things went wrong. Because he was family, because I was supposed to. But now the shine was peeling off. Fast. It started subtly. A comment under one of Sienna's old posts. Didn't she used to be engaged to his brother? Then another. Awkward much? She turned off comments the next day. Then came the whispers in the family group threads. Well, the ones I was no longer a part of. Cousin May sent me a message out of nowhere. This thing you're doing, it's making people uncomfortable. I stared at the message like it was written in another language. Uncomfortable? They weren't uncomfortable when my brother was in bed with my fiancée. They weren't uncomfortable when my parents told me to skip Christmas to keep things smooth. But now that I'd held a mirror to their betrayal, now they squirmed? I didn't respond. She followed up. You're causing a scene. So I sent her a few screenshots. The invoice I sent to Sienna. The property co-sign document. The polite, legal emails I'd sent my parents and Tobias. She left me on read. Because when you show people receipts, they either shut up or show who they really are. Malcolm watched me from across the room. He was on his third coffee of the day and had this slow grin spreading across his face. You're not even saying much, he said. But somehow, you're the one flipping their world upside down. I'm not loud, I replied. I'm thorough. Tobias and Sienna, on the other hand, were cracking. Sienna's social media turned into cryptic reposts about self-care and people being threatened by your peace. Translation? She was drowning in judgment and trying to claw her way back to a narrative where she was the victim. Good luck with that. Tobias tried to throw a birthday party a few weeks later. Only a handful of people showed. And someone, I don't know who, mentioned in a comment that it was a weird look to be celebrating when you just got booted from your rent-free house. He deleted the post. Then his whole profile. I didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. But something inside me began to settle. Not in vengeance. Just in quiet vindication. They'd spent so long propped up by family illusions and filtered facades. But none of that held up against actual truth. My mom stopped posting entirely. Raymond, my father, left a voicemail on my phone. You've made your point. Now it's time to let things go. Enough's enough. I didn't respond. Because they didn't understand that this wasn't about making a point. This wasn't petty. This was me, holding people accountable. For once. Tobias had always been the son they defended, no matter what he did. The one they bailed out, the one they excused. And now, that same son had embarrassed them. Publicly. Repeatedly. And they had to sit in it. The house was gone. Sold. No more side income for my parents. No more free living for Tobias. No more holding anything over me. And with Sienna blocked on every platform that mattered, I didn't have to watch their twisted fairy tale anymore. But even without watching, I heard the cracks. Mutual friends started reaching out. One messaged me directly. Hey, I don't mean to stir stuff, but Tobias and Sienna were fighting in public the other night. Like, full-on screaming. I didn't ask for details. Didn't need them. It's what happens when two people bond over betrayal. They eventually turn on each other. Because there's no trust at the core. Just shared guilt. Another old friend, Damien, sent me a message a few days later. We hadn't talked since before the engagement blew up. Didn't want to choose sides back then, he wrote. But I respect how you've handled this. Quiet. Clear. Brutal, in the best way. I thanked him. That was enough. There were no grand declarations. No press releases. Just the slow shift of perception. People who once raised eyebrows at my silence were now beginning to understand that silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's composure. It's restraint with a fuse. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I was just done lying down. And as Tobias and Sienna twisted in the weight of their own choices, I finally understood what it meant to reclaim your name. Not by shouting. Not by fighting. But by standing so still, the truth echoes around you. The knock on my door came at 7:42 p.m. I watched it happen through the peephole, slow and deliberate. Not angry. Not panicked. Just there. My father, standing on the other side of my apartment door, in the gray overcoat he always wore during serious conversations. His expression wasn't one of apology. It was one of performance, tight jaw, lowered eyes, rehearsed humility. Like he was about to deliver a eulogy and thought that alone would earn him grace. I didn't open the door. Not because I was afraid. Because I knew what he was there to do. Spin it. Redefine it. Rewrite it. The same way he always had, since we were kids. When Tobias stole, he was curious. When I defended myself, I was difficult. That door stayed locked because I refused to be recast in a script where I was the ungrateful one. He knocked again. 3 slow taps. Then, silence. And finally, the sound of his footsteps retreating. A few minutes later, the email started. First from my mother. Long paragraphs that looked sincere at a glance, but read like PR statements. We miss you. We didn't mean to hurt you. Tobias is going through a rough time. They used the word family like a leash. They used grace like currency they thought I owed them. I read every word like fiction. They weren't writing to me. They were writing to the image of me they wanted back, the compliant version. The one who stayed quiet. Who smoothed things over. Who gave up his seat at the table so they wouldn't have to sit in discomfort. I didn't reply. That night, I made a decision. I moved out of Malcolm's place and into a 1-bedroom apartment I found 2 neighborhoods over. Nothing fancy, bare walls, plain floors, just enough room to breathe. But it was mine. My name on the lease. My name on the mailbox. No family name looming over it. No past waiting in the hallway. I didn't share the address. Didn't announce the move. Didn't post a photo with a cheesy caption like New Beginnings. I changed my number. New SIM. New service. Only Malcolm and 3 others got it. The family group chat? I never rejoined. My mother had tried adding me twice. The first time, I left immediately. The second, I blocked the number she used. They'd made their choice when they chose Tobias and Sienna. They could keep it. Let them pass the phone around the dinner table, staring at the empty icon next to my name, whispering about how cold I'd become. I wasn't cold. I was clear. One afternoon, I stopped by the coffee shop near my new place and ran into an old neighbor, Miss Darlene. She squinted at me for a second, then smiled like she'd just spotted a familiar face in a dream. Where have you been hiding, sweetheart? She asked. I shrugged. Just needed some air. She nodded like she understood everything without a single detail. Then she leaned in and said something I'll never forget. Sometimes when folks push you out, it's because they know you see too much. That sat with me all day. She was right. They didn't want me quiet because I was wrong. They wanted me quiet because I was right. Because I saw the favoritism, the double standards, the games. Because I remembered the things they conveniently forgot. Because I kept receipts. They didn't want peace. They wanted submission. But I had outgrown that version of myself. The one who internalized every insult, minimized every hurt, and called it being the bigger person. No more. My peace didn't look like forgiveness over a shared dinner. It looked like stillness. My peace was slow mornings without my phone blowing up. It was setting my own table, brewing my own coffee, eating my dinner in silence without someone telling me I should let it go. It was deleting photos without ceremony, unfollowing names that no longer meant safety, and looking in the mirror knowing I didn't need their version of closure to move forward. A week later, Malcolm came by with a bottle of wine and takeout. You good? He asked, watching me settle on the new couch. Yeah, I said, and meant it. No Tobias sightings? None. Guess he finally got the message. Malcolm raised a brow. You think they'll ever really let it go? I don't care, I replied. That's the difference now. I'm not living my life waiting for their version of right. He nodded. That's growth. That night, as we sat eating in front of the TV, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. Not in a heavy way. More like something finally laying down beside me and going still. They could keep their awkward dinners, their forced smiles, their fractured stories. I had silence. And for the first time, it wasn't punishment. It was freedom. The final email from the real estate agent came on a quiet Thursday morning. The duplex had officially sold. Full asking price. The buyers, an engaged couple from out of state, were scheduled to move in by the end of the month. With that single line of text, everything shifted. The property was no longer in my name. And just like that, the last tie I had to Tobias, to the structure of false promises and family expectations, was gone. I stood in the center of my new living room. Bare floors, a borrowed couch, and a single framed photo of me and Malcolm at graduation on the shelf. No family portraits. No ghosts in gold frames. Just silence and sunlight pouring in through the half-drawn blinds. I exhaled. Tobias was out. Word traveled fast. Too fast. Within days, whispers started weaving through the family web like a crack in a frozen lake, silent, spreading, impossible to ignore. Sienna had moved back in with her sister. That much I knew from a mutual acquaintance who texted me a photo of her at a small wine bar downtown, hunched over a table with her head in her hands. No ring on her finger. No Tobias beside her. The image didn't make me feel vindicated. It just confirmed what I already knew. They'd imploded. Not because I tore them down, but because they built something with rot at the foundation. My parents tried to hold the pieces together, of course. My mother still posted the occasional filtered selfie, though no more group shots, no festive captions. Just wine glasses, candles, Bible verses about grace and unity that felt more like cries for control than reflections of faith. Then came the texts. Mom, it's not the same without you. Dad, please. You're all we have left. I read those words more than I should have. Not because I believed them, but because I needed to understand the pattern. They didn't miss me. They missed my silence. They missed the version of me who forgave and moved on before they had to look at themselves. They missed the buffer, the scapegoat, the steady, reliable son who'd clean up messes without complaint, the emotional locksmith who always opened the door no matter how many times they slammed it in his face. But I was gone, not geographically, not entirely emotionally, but gone in the way that matters, gone from the illusion that blood means loyalty, gone from the guilt that made me second-guess what I deserved. Gone from the house I once co-signed for. Now sold, emptied, keys handed over to strangers with no idea what happened there. I didn't reply to my parents. Not because I hated them, but because I no longer accepted their terms. The day the sale finalized, Malcolm invited me out to a small rooftop bar we used to frequent back when we thought 27 was old and heartbreaks still had expiration dates. The sky was purple gold, the air warm, and for once, I didn't feel like I was carrying someone else's wreckage on my back. He raised his glass. To the last nail in the coffin. I raised mine, but said nothing. Because it wasn't a celebration, not in the loud, laughing way. It was more like standing at a grave and finally feeling okay to walk away. Over the next few weeks, invitations stopped coming. Cousin birthdays. Baby showers. That random, just come by the house for drinks, that used to land in my inbox like clockwork. They dried up. Not because they hated me, but because I was a mirror now. And no one likes facing what they helped break. I heard through the grapevine that Tobias had moved back in with my parents. He was sleeping in the same room we shared as kids, stripped of the fake business titles and false independence. My dad told someone at work he was helping Tobias get back on his feet again. A familiar phrase. A tired loop. As for Sienna? Nothing. No messages. No calls. Just that silence that follows a hurricane. I found an old hoodie of hers while unpacking a box I'd missed. I held it for a second. It smelled like her lavender detergent. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel longing. I just felt done. I tossed it in the donation pile without ceremony. Because that's all she was now, a past tense. A closed chapter. The best part of it all? I didn't have to explain anything anymore. Not to family. Not to friends. Not to myself. The story had unfolded on its own. The receipts were there. The photos vanished. The golden boy tarnished himself, and the parents who bet on him were left holding an empty house and a silence they never expected. They didn't collapse because of me. They collapsed because truth doesn't need to be shouted to burn everything down. Sometimes, it just waits. And when it arrives, it doesn't knock. It walks right in. Tobias is back where he started, living under the roof of the very people who once called him unstoppable. My parents never posted a photo of him returning. No captions about family first. No, we're so proud declarations. Just silence. Maybe shame. Maybe stubbornness. It didn't matter. The image was enough. The golden boy, stripped of the glow, dragging his duffel bag back into the same house where he used to lord his success over everyone else. The same house that birthed every excuse he'd ever been handed. Sienna? I haven't seen her. I don't look for her either. She could be 3 blocks away or 3 continents, and I wouldn't care. The part of me that used to flinch at the sound of her name now barely registers it. I assume she's rewriting the story somewhere, trying to make herself the heartbroken one in the version she tells over drinks to people who don't know better. It didn't work out, she probably says, because he changed. And in a way, she's right. I did change. I got tired of being predictable. As for me, I have peace. Not the dramatic, post-breakup, blast music and buy new furniture kind of peace. Real peace. Quiet mornings with coffee in my own kitchen. No phone buzzing with accusations or fake apologies. No forced family dinners. No gaslighting masquerading as concern. Just air. Just space. Just me. I wake up without the weight of needing to prove anything to anyone. I don't need their understanding anymore. Or their validation. I'm not building my days around the chance that they'll wake up and see my side of things. That's the trick they never tell you about healing. It doesn't happen when they apologize. It happens when you stop needing them to. The keys to the old duplex? Gone. The last payment from Sienna cleared and was used to furnish my new space. I bought a bookshelf, a real one. Sturdy, walnut finish, the kind that doesn't tip over at the first gust of wind. I filled it with stories that didn't end with betrayal. Stories where people stood back up. My phone, my real phone, the one with the new number, has only 6 contacts. No family. No Sienna. Just people who never needed a crisis to remember my worth. Sometimes I sit on my balcony at night with a glass of wine and think about how they wanted this to go. I wasn't supposed to survive it. Not the breakup. Not the betrayal. Not the exile. I was supposed to shrink. To retreat. To play the wounded, bitter man who can't move on. But instead, I became undeniable. Not in revenge. Not in spite. Just by refusing to vanish. They wanted me quiet. Invisible. Disposable. And I almost gave them that. I almost disappeared into the apology loop they'd rehearsed for years. But then I realized something. I was never the one who should have been apologizing. They were just loud. That's all. Loud and united and relentless in their demand for comfort. But comfort at my expense? Never again. People still ask, once in a while, those few who come around, do you think you'll ever talk to them again? And I smile. Not because it's funny, but because I already know the answer. No, not out of anger. Out of clarity. The thing about fire is, it shows you what was never built to last. And now that the smoke is cleared, I see them for what they were. Conditional. Convenient. Fleeting. I wasn't the victim. I was the lesson. I wasn't the discarded one. I was the mirror they couldn't look into. And when people ask, whatever happened to you and your family? I say this. They didn't lose me. They let me go. There's a difference. The last time my mother texted me, it was short. Just 6 words. Your father's birthday is next week. I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. Because my presence isn't a switch they can flip when the guilt gets loud. I'm not a spare chair they can pull up when one of theirs breaks. I was never a placeholder. I was the builder. The one who made things work. Who bent backward to keep things whole. Who gave and gave and gave. And when I finally stopped giving, they called me cold. But what they really meant was, I stopped being convenient. And they don't know how to love people they can't use. So now, when I walk into my home, I walk in without flinching. When I sleep without waking up in anger. When I laugh, it isn't brittle. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need permission. They made their choice. And I made mine. So when they tell the story someday, and they will, they'll say, he just walked away. But the truth? I didn't walk. I shut the door and locked it from the outside. Permanently.